Chapter 45-51. When G3 heard Xia Jinyuan mention her family background again, his thick eyebrows twisted a little. What is Qin Ying's background? Her mother is an entrepreneur? A strong woman? Do you have any impression of Ambassador Qin? They are brother and sister. The Qin family, the world of diplomat. When old Master Qin meets the big leaders now, the big leaders have to take the initiative to shake hand. Just like the old man at home, they were all extremely influential founding fathers of that era. G3 heard this and silently gasped. Her background was extraordinary. You think there is a chance? Everything depends on effort. Xia Jinyuan raised his wrist to look at the time. In the blink of an eye, it was already midnight. Let's go back and rest. We will leave the military aviation group before 10 o'clock tomorrow. They left by plane in the afternoon. Yi Qian flew back to Xiang City alone, and the 45 of them returned to the base. The military aviation camp became more and more quiet. The sentinel on duty looked straight ahead, accompanied by only the lights, mosquitoes, and the gradually fading night insects. Yi Qian went to bed at 11:30. When she woke up, it was already 8 o'clock the next day. More than 40 days of cruel pursuit training made her biological clock not work on time. The situation on the male soldiers' side was similar, slightly better than Yi Qian's. If someone woke up early in a room, the other comrades would soon wake up. Yi Qian, who was resting alone in a room, was not disturbed and woke up naturally. Yi Qian washed up and looked at herself in the mirror again. She felt more pleasing to the eye than yesterday. It seemed that the aloe vera issued by the military aviation group was quite effective. She wanted to see if she could get a few more before leaving. The camouflage on the balcony had been blown by the wind and dried by the morning sun. Yi Qian, who missed breakfast, simply wore a helmet and camouflage until 5 minutes before departure time before leaving the room. There was no other way. She was embarrassed to face Xia Jinyuan's laughter last night, so she could only choose a compromise. When Yi Qian went out and saw the same, she was completely at ease. When Xia Jinyuan saw his girlfriend appear, his mind immediately flashed to yesterday. His thin lips under the goggles couldn't help but curve slightly. However, Yi Qian's eyes, which were hidden behind the goggles, couldn't help but observe him. Seeing this, her heart wavered. For the first time, she wanted to maintain a good image in front of her boyfriend. The military aviation regiment had already arranged for the bus to send the 46 people to the airport. Knowing that this unit that entered the Gobi Desert for training was special, the pickup and sending time was arranged very well and did not alarm many soldiers in the regiment. The regiment commander was not in the barracks. He was leading a patrol team to complete a normal airspace patrol. They would only return after 15 days. Contact with the Snowfield Brigade was directly ordered by the military and arranged in advance. In less than 5 minutes, the queue was completed. Xia Jinyuan was the first to get on the bus, followed by Yi Qian. When she passed by the first row of seats, she wanted to ignore the man who was already sitting in the first row. However, the man saw through her intentions and reached out to grab her wrist and pull her towards the seat. He even smiled and said, "Sit properly and don't move." It was too late to get up. His comrades behind him came up one after another. Every one of them smiled knowingly when they saw the two of them standing side by side. The veteran even made a shooting gesture with his hands and smiled as he pointed at the captain who was pestering them. Other than V8, everyone who passed by would look at the two of them. G3 was the last to get on the bus. He took off his helmet and sat on the left side of the first row with Xia Jinyuan across the aisle. When Yi Qian saw this, his body stiffened. Immediately after, Xia Jinyuan also took off his helmet and turned his head to look behind. When Yi Qian saw this, he pursed his lips and also took off his helmet. But she didn't want to take it off. "Are you afraid of being seen by me?" Chapter 45-52. While she was hesitating, she heard a guy's deep laughter. She wanted to slap him. Couldn't he tell? She didn't notice the coldness on the man's face. Xia Jinyuan could tell, but she had to get used to it. She had to go through this once anyway. If she minded it too much, it would only make things difficult for herself. Then, take it with you and get it when we get to the airport. But let me say one more thing. As a soldier who is preparing for war in the future, even if her face is disfigured, she should stand upright in the world. What do we rely on? We can't rely on our faces. You can choose not to take it now, but you'll have to face it when you get to the airport. Do you want to face it early and adjust your mentality, or do you want to receive more attention later and put yourself in an awkward position? Although his voice was gentle, his words were sharp. Yi Qian pursed her lips even tighter. Her hand slowly reached for the belt of the helmet. With a click, the buckle was undone. She took off the helmet and placed it on her knees. She raised her hand and smoothed her short hair. Yi Qian didn't expect it to only take 3 seconds. Xia Jinyuan smiled and rubbed her head. I was wrong to laugh at you yesterday. It's the first time I see my little fox. It's a little rare. If I had a camera, I would have taken photos and paid attention. Yesterday you laughed at me for being ugly. The psychological trauma has multiplied. Yi Qian muttered softly and turned to look out of the car window. Although she took off the helmet, she still didn't have the courage to face her boyfriend. Seeing this, Xia Jinyuan reached out and held Yi Qian's face. Yi Qian was so scared that she couldn't break free. I'm very sorry, and I'm also very serious about telling you that no matter what you look like, you'll always be my favorite. Now, is it still awkward? His voice came slowly. Yi Qian just wanted him to let go. She nodded vigorously. I know. Hurry up and let go. You really know? Absolutely. Her comrade reminded her from behind. Excuse me, the gap between the 2 seats is a little big. I'm afraid I'll jump out of the car. Yi Qian was too embarrassed to say anything. You can close your eyes when appropriate. It's good for relaxing your mind and relieving the fatigue in your eyes, Xia Jinyuan answered in a gentlemanly manner, perfectly defeating the 2 comrades behind him. His hands were still loose. Usually, he could hold her face for a long time and kiss her a few times, but it was too strange to hold her face all the time in the car. He let go. G3, who had been watching for a while, finally found a chance to speak. He said across the aisle, Captain. Hearing this, Xia Jinyuan immediately stepped out of the aisle. G3, who leaned over with him, laughed softly. He handed in the letter. He was shocked when he found out that a beauty had a crush on him for 5 years. Before the matter was settled, other than T6 and Yi Qian, who knew a little about the inside story, the 2 of them did not want the rest of their team members to know about it to avoid embarrassing V8. It wasn't easy for this unlucky child to change. Don't revert back to how things used to be. Xia Jinyuan raised an eyebrow. Happy? Startled? Why do I feel like you're frightened? A little. He wanted to return the photos to me after he got them. He directly said that they weren't good enough. G3 shook his head helplessly. I regret it now. I should have waited until we returned to the army before giving him the letter and photos. What's the difference between giving it sooner or later? The sooner you give it, the sooner you express your stance. Whether you reject or accept it, you just have to give the other party a word. Xia Jinyuan chuckled. G3's eyebrows twitched. He asked, Are you saying that you want Miss Qin to give up? V8 will definitely reject it. It can't be. It wasn't easy for him to get a chance. Was he going to give up just like that? It didn't seem like his style. Chapter 45-53. The astute Lieutenant Colonel Xia wouldn't let it go. He wasn't worried about the future development at all, mainly because he had confidence in Qin Ning. He crossed his long legs and smiled mischievously. No, so that the rejected Miss Qin can think of a countermeasure to be rejected as soon as possible. If she accepts, she doesn't need to think of a countermeasure. If she rejects, she needs to think of a countermeasure and plan her next step. Since it's more difficult to think, it's better to answer early so that Qin Ying can plan. How could he be a captain at such a young age? The difference could be seen from a small matter. When thinking and dealing with problems, he would never be one-sided. He would deal with all aspects. G3, who didn't think of this, gave his captain a thumbs up. Good. Really good. Then I'll contact Miss Qin in private and surround her. If she wants to escape, she can only obediently escape into Miss Qin's bowl. Not bad, contact her well. I'll wait for your good news. Xia Jinyuan accepted his comrade's praise and smiled back. Although Yi Jian turned her head to look at the passing scenery outside the window, she still admired him in her heart at this time. The man she liked was really extraordinary. He could think of what others thought of, but he could also think of what others didn't think of. It was a 6-hour drive from the military aviation regiment to the airport. They would leave at 10 and arrive at around 4 in the afternoon. Yi Qian would fly to Xiang City at 6, and the Snowfield Brigade would take off half an hour later. The 6-hour journey would be the last 6 hours that Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan would spend together during the summer vacation. Xia Jinyuan realized that although their relationship was public, his little girlfriend was more shy than before. She was even afraid of being seen by her comrade sitting behind them. The unexpected turn of events stunned Lieutenant Colonel Xia for a long time. In the end, he had no choice but to show his dominance. He tightly held Yi Jian's hand that was constantly trying to break free and snorted, "Whether we hold hands or not, they will still think that we will hold hands. Since that is the case, why don't we hold hands a little tighter?" 6 hours. After 6 hours, we might only meet during the winter vacation. Maybe the school has arrangements for you during the winter vacation. Little Fox, can you bear to do that? Bear to do that? Actually, she could bear with it. But Yi Qian's heart instantly softened after being coaxed and begged by him in a voice as gentle as water. She stopped struggling and allowed him to hold her tightly. Her ears had already quietly turned red. Xia Jinyuan was delighted to see him. "You're still the same as before. Your ears are always the first to turn red, just like onyx." He shook his hand, knowing that he would do something else. Xia Jinyuan turned sideways and gently pinched Yi Qian's earlobes, which were reddening under the sunlight outside the car window. "Soft, warm, and nice to touch. I heard from the older generation that having a fleshy earlobe is a blessing. My baby will be a person of great fortune in the future." A person of great fortune? Yi Qian couldn't dodge in time, and her earlobe was pinched by him. She couldn't help but lower her eyes. In her previous life, she was an unlucky person with shallow family ties. In this life, he was right. She also thought that she was lucky in this life. "Thank you for your kind words, Captain Xia. Whether I'm lucky or not depends on you." Yi Qian looked over with a smile and felt a little regretful. If he took off his helmet, he would definitely be seen by his comrades behind them. The two unlucky team members sitting behind didn't see it. They listened to Lieutenant Colonel Xia's advice and closed their eyes to rest. During the 6-hour car ride, the two didn't interact the entire time. In the first 2 hours there were some small movements, but in the last few hours they were practically hand in hand. Yi Qian leaned on his shoulder and rocked to sleep. The team members leaned their heads against each other and rocked to sleep. The fatigue from more than 40 days of training couldn't be recovered in one night. Chapter 45-54. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. They arrived at the airport to pick up their tickets and check in. Time passed by in a flash. The group of people was too conspicuous. They didn't go to the lobby during the check-in process. They avoided the crowd and entered the departure hall. Finally, they boarded in advance. Xia Jinyuan watched as Yi Qian walked through the boarding gate and boarded the plane. After standing for a few minutes, he heard that his plane was also preparing to board. He stood for a few more minutes before he strode away and returned to his own boarding gate. He came back alone. More than 40 comrades greeted him with a smile. They didn't make fun of him, only comforting him. Xia Jinyuan smiled and picked up his backpack to board the plane. All of their guns were sent back to the team by the transport plane. There were no dangerous items in their backpacks. Even their combat daggers were sent back by the transport plane. Therefore, they didn't need to use the special passage to complete the boarding. The 45 people were seated at the back. The passengers were in front. The flight time was 5 hours and 17 minutes. Yi Qian needed to transfer, so the flight time was even slower. They arrived at Xiang City around 3 in the morning. The two planes flew in different directions until they landed at their respective locations. After Xia Jinyuan got off the plane, he sent a text message to Yi Qian's cell phone. Yi Qian didn't reply until 3:30 in the morning. Safely arrived. When he returned to the military academy, it was already 5 in the morning. Just in time to hear the wake-up call of the freshman military training. Da-da-dee-dee-dee-da, da-da-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. After the 4 different calls, Yi Qian walked into the campus and heard the first, second, and first call. Although the sound was loud and clear, there was no power and there was no power. As soon as he heard it, he knew that they were freshmen who had just started military training. Yi Qian avoided them and returned to the dormitory through the tree-lined path. There was no one in the dormitory. Even the entire floor was empty. Only Yi Qian came in and out. After tidying up, Yi Qian sat in the chair and thought for a moment. He took out his cell phone and sent a text message to Suwon. Less than 3 minutes after the text message was sent, he immediately received a reply. I just checked the weather forecast for Xiang City. The sky is clear and there is no rain. Little friend Yi Qian, where did this shower come from? You asked me if I put my foundation in the dormitory. The 4 exclamation marks were not enough to express the moment Suwon saw the text message. She was shocked. They were so shocked that they almost dropped their phones. Suwon was currently on vacation at home. She had only returned to the capital 3 days ago. Just as she was about to get out of bed, she received a message from Yi Qian. After reading it, she immediately replied. Seriously tanned, with 3 colors on my face. I was afraid that the chief would have a heart attack, so I prepared in advance, Yi Qian replied with a smile. He directly omitted the exclamation mark. Not bad, you're aware. Please treat it well. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to call. My phone number is *********. After confirming that Yi Qian really needed it, Suwon was so happy that she threw herself on the bed and laughed. The laughter was so loud that the elders in the family came to knock on the door and ask. The old man only left after Suwon said that she was fine. Yi Qian opened Suwon's metal cabinet and saw a set of expensive skincare products in English, as well as a set of cosmetics of the same brand. He once asked her why she didn't take them with her when she was on vacation. Suwon replied, didn't want to check them in. Fortunately, her not wanting to check them in saved Yi Qian. After carefully reading the instructions, Yi Qian took out a pre-makeup bottle, a liquid powder, and a powder bottle. Following the steps, he began to save the tricolored face. Fortunately, Yi Qian's skin was not bad. His skin was delicate and without any pores. For the first time, she seriously completed the makeup. She focused on whitening the bridge of the nose to the chin. After 15 minutes, the tricolored face in the mirror finally had a uniform complexion. Trees need bark, people need face. No wonder you need a set of cosmetics that can turn something rotten into something sacred. Yi Qian looked at the 3 most simple things and considered walking around Wui Road in the afternoon. Chapter 45-55. When Yi Qian appeared in the director's office, he saw her in her summer military uniform. She looked radiant and her eyes were bright. The director couldn't help but take a second look at her. After the greeting, the director smiled and said, "Not bad, Xiao Yi. You've changed so much. Come, have a seat." The director had always treated Yi Qian well. He didn't put on airs and even stood up to ask Yi Qian if she wanted a cup of tea. Yi Qian couldn't let the director make tea for her, so she quickly smiled and said she would make it herself. Xia Jinyuan said he would take you out for training. Why don't I see any training? You didn't get a tan. Her radiant appearance made the director suspicious. She said she would train harder, but she came back radiant and didn't get a tan. 43 days of training. Maybe it's because there are more cloudy days than sunny days, so there aren't many changes. Before coming, Yi Qian had already thought of how to explain herself. Feeling guilty, she quickly explained and changed the topic. Director, I'm going to another school tomorrow, right? Oh no. General Xiang changed the 15 days of military training to 10 days because the weather is too hot. He was afraid that the freshmen would get heatstroke. You still have 5 days of leave. Do you want to go home and visit your family? You want to rush back to school on the 5th day? The director's words made Yi Qian's eyes light up. Her 5 days of leave were like an extra 5 days of leave. Go home, definitely go home. She also wanted to go back to the capital to visit Uncle Chun. She hadn't seen Uncle Chun in a long time. She also wanted to visit Commander-in-Chief Xia to see if there was any progress on Uncle Chen's case. After leaving the director's office, Yi Qian called home, but no one picked up. She called the landline, Old Master and Uncle Fu again, but no one picked up. Needless to say, Old Master must have gone to the weapons laboratory again, and Uncle Fu must have gone to take care of him. Without contacting the old man, Yi Qian sent a text to his father Fu. Before he could get a reply, the plane notified him that his phone had been turned off. Yi Qian waited for another 10 seconds before he turned off his phone. When Yi Qian got off the plane and turned on his phone, he received several text messages. When he saw the word Dad, he was overjoyed. She scurried while reading the 4 messages. Then, she picked up her travel handbag and sprinted towards the arrival gate. Father Fu, who had not seen his daughter for hundreds of days and nights, received a text from his daughter, Yi Qian. After leaving the military headquarters, he sprinted all the way to the airport. Father Fu, who had arrived 2 hours earlier, stood at the arrival gate and watched until a figure sprinted over. He was so happy and excited that his eyes instantly turned red. That was the daughter he had not seen for a long time, the daughter he owed his entire life. Dad! When Yi Qian saw Father Fu, he restrained himself until he was right in front of Father Fu. Then, he threw himself into his father's open arms. Dad, when are you coming back to the capital? Did you just come back? I sent you a lot of text messages, did you receive them? Are you tired? Did you wait for me for a long time? Why didn't you find a place to sit and wait? Father Fu did not even have a chance to speak before he heard Yi Qian's long string of questions. Father Fu's eyes became even more moist. Father Fu gently patted Yi Qian's back and said with a smile, I have to answer your questions one by one. It's like setting off firecrackers. Aren't you afraid of choking yourself? He patiently answered all of Yi Qian's questions while sizing up Yi Qian. Chapter 45-56. Mr. Fu was a man of letters. Even though he had been serving at a missile base in the northwest, he was still a man of letters in his military uniform. He was an elegant and strict man of letters, and because of work, he was also a man of letters who was very strict with himself. He rarely showed his emotions. However, in the face of hundreds of daughters whom he had not seen for days and nights, Father Fu was also very excited. His daughter was his spiritual support for the rest of his life, and she was also the pillar of support for his health. She was fine, and so was the family. He only hoped that his only bloodline would always be fine. While answering Yi Qian's questions, Father Fu carefully looked at his daughter. He had not answered all the questions, and his heart ached. Why did you lose so much weight? Is it because of the pressure? Or did you encounter a problem? Your face is so thin that there isn't much flesh on it. You didn't take good care of yourself. As he spoke, He gently rubbed Yi Qian's made-up face with his finger. As expected, Father Fu's thumb was stained with white, revealing the skin color that Yi Qian wanted to cover. Father Fu looked at his thumb and then looked at the spot on Yi Qian's face where he had rubbed his thumb. With the powder as a contrast, the exposed skin looked even darker. "You child." Father Fu, who still did not understand, sighed heavily. His kind eyes were filled with deep heartache. "No wonder you lost so much weight. You're even darker than the sentinels in the northwest. When we go back, I have to give you good nourishment. You can't hurt your body." Yi Jian couldn't help but laugh when she heard that her skin was darker than the sentinels on guard duty in the northwest. "Dad, please don't discourage me anymore. I've even learned to apply makeup on my face in order to cover up my skin color. If you continue, I'll hide in my room for the next few days." Why are you even more powerful than the male soldiers? Don't apply too much makeup on your face. There are too many harmful substances. I will contact a national healer later and see if he has a prescription. Your face is tanned, and I'm afraid the back of your neck is also tanned. Father Fu's heart ached, but there was nothing he could do. His daughter had chosen the path of him and his wife, so she was destined to suffer more than other daughters. He couldn't even say something along the lines of suffering and tiring. How could a soldier not suffer and be tiring? What's the point of keeping you in the army if you don't suffer and tire yourself out? Father Fu's heart ached as he took Yi Jian's simple luggage. He smiled as he listened to Yi Jian speak. His heart ached for his daughter, but when he saw that she was willing to do it and was happy from it, Father Fu felt a little better. His daughter was the best daughter in the world, but as a father, he was not the best father. Not to mention the hardships he suffered in the army, even when Brother Chun passed away unexpectedly. He was not by his daughter's side, leaving her to endure, suffer, and suffer alone. As a father, he was too unqualified. Yi Qian, on the other hand, did not feel that she had suffered much. The hardships she was going through now were so that she could kill more targets in the future and come back alive every time. With this in mind, she was willing to suffer any amount of hardships. Her goal was to chase after Captain Xia and not let go. Her wish was to come back alive every time, because her family, who loved her deeply, was waiting for her safe return. On the way, Yi Qian laughed and talked about many interesting things in the military academy. She would pick some of the interesting things that happened during training and even mentioned that her eldest brother, Li Jinyan, had gone to school and had a round with Xia Jinyuan while he was at it. The surrounding cadets all clapped and cheered. Father Fu, who had personally driven over to pick up his daughter, laughed when he heard this. "Did your eldest brother beat that rascal up for me? He really deserves a beating for kidnapping our little princess. Only your brother can stand up for me in the family." Chapter 45-57. As an elder, Father Fu actually wanted to do it himself, but he was restricted by his status. He could only glare at him and give him a few warnings. His nephew, Jin Yan, was the most suitable person to do it. Yi Qian knew what Father Fu wanted to hear, so she nodded. "Yes, I did. After Big Brother did it, he continued to do it. Don't worry, we won't lose out if we work together." "You're willing to do it? You must be lying to me." Father Fu didn't quite believe it. He had no choice. His daughter admitted that she liked family Xia, and she was protecting him. Sigh, how could he beat him up like that? Yi Qian moved her body and turned to Father Fu, who was driving. She said seriously, "I really beat him up and he can't fight back. Dad, I'm good at it. I won't lose out." "Ha ha ha ha, not bad, not bad. Men sometimes need to be taught a lesson. You have to teach him well. Even though I admit that this kid from the Xia family is reliable and is a man that you can entrust your life to, your grandfather and I are not willing to let him marry the little princess of the Fu family so easily. Daughter, let me talk to you. Don't bring that guy into our conversation. Every time I talk about him, I get anxious." This was a real father. He couldn't bear to see his daughter being taken away by a wolf. Even though he knew that his daughter would get married and become a mother one day, he still couldn't bear to part with her. Yi Qian saw that Father Fu was jealous and secretly felt happy. She said seriously, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Father Fu, who got his daughter's promise, laughed happily. He even hummed the national anthem as he drove, which made Yi Qian even more happy. Later, she sent a text message to Xia Jinyuan. "Captain Xia, my dad thinks that you've stolen his little princess. He told me seriously that you've become a topic that he doesn't want to talk about. It's a long road ahead, you have to work hard." Xia Jinyuan was in the middle of training, so his phone was turned off. When he saw the text, it was already past 10 p.m. Yi Qian sent the text at 6:05 p.m. After receiving the message, Xia Jinyuan smiled and naturally dialed her number. He waited for about 5 seconds before the call went through. Just when he thought that Yi Qian had something to do and was about to hang up, the call went through. Before Yi Qian could say anything, Xia Jinyuan said affectionately, "Baby, you have to put in a good word for me in front of my father-in-law." As soon as he finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan heard a cold snort that sent chills down his spine. "I'm the father of my baby. I have a baby waiting to be betrothed to me. I've never been promoted to father-in-law. May I ask who you are?" Xia Jinyuan, who had always been calm, threw the phone out of his hand. Just as the phone was about to fall to the ground, Xia Jinyuan hurriedly tried to rescue it. However, he forgot that he had one foot on the office chair. In the end, the phone was saved, but he and the chair fell to the ground with a bang. "Captain," when the T6 combatant pushed open the door and entered, he saw the famous commander fall to the ground in an extremely pathetic position. The chair even touched his back affectionately. Crack, the T6 combatant, who had dubbed Xia Jinyuan's voice, cried out in pain. Father Fu, who had answered his daughter's call, heard the bang 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 sounds coming from the other side of the phone. The sneer in his eyes deepened. "Now you're panicking? Let me tell you, kid, it's too late. Baby? Baby? Who's your baby? Who's your future father-in-law? You're the Fu family's baby. Future father-in-law? Let me tell you, kid, I don't acknowledge you." Chapter 45-58. Xia Jinyuan, who had fallen to the ground, was terrified. Even if he had a sharp mind, he would never have guessed that the person who answered the phone was his future father-in-law. An angry future father-in-law was terrifying. Even though he was far away, Xia Jinyuan could feel his future father-in-law's anger. His back was drenched in cold sweat. "My dear wife, come and save your man." The unlucky lieutenant colonel, who had gotten up with his hands on his lower back, regretted it. Just as he turned around to pick up his chair, he saw a figure pass by the open office door. Xia Jinyuan's expression froze. When he fell, he seemed to have heard someone push the door open and call him "Captain" without even knocking. That person happened to see him fall in shock. Who was that voice? Xia Jinyuan, who had been frightened by his future father-in-law, was confused. He couldn't remember who that voice belonged to. The 30 new comrades could be ruled out, so they were all veterans. If they were veterans, after thinking about it, Xia Jinyuan slapped his forehead. Shouldn't he be thinking about how to appease his future father-in-law? It didn't matter that his comrades had seen him fall. On the other side, Father Fu didn't want to wait for Xia Jinyuan to explain anything. He snorted and hung up the phone. "Baby? Huh? Future father-in-law? Huh? Say something nice? Huh?" After hanging up, Father Fu stared at the phone for a while. The sneer on his face didn't disappear. "Family Xia, this kid, huh? Ha ha." He thought he was calm and reliable, but now it seemed he was glib-tongued and indecent. Just one sentence, "baby, future father-in-law," and the unlucky Lieutenant Colonel Xia's image in his future father-in-law's mind plummeted. That was almost a slap to his death. He wanted to take advantage of his little princess over the phone. Were they going to meet in person? Wouldn't that kid be even more insatiable? Wouldn't he be even more glib-tongued? His little princess was obviously smart, so how could she have been coaxed by a kid so early? It turned out that the root of it all was family Xia. That kid was too glib-tongued and had coaxed his innocent daughter. No. No way. He still had to think it over. Father Fu had always wanted to keep Yi Qian by his side for as long as he could. Previously, because Xia Jinyuan was too outstanding and he couldn't find any fault with him, Father Fu couldn't make any request. Now that Father Fu had seized the opportunity, it could only be said that Xia Jinyuan had bumped into his future father-in-law and could only pinch his nose and obediently accept it. Therefore, Yi Qian, who had just finished her sunburn treatment, came out of the room with the smell of Chinese medicine. She saw her father Fu sitting on the sofa watching the military channel with a serious expression on his face. Yi Qian, who did not know what was going on, did not immediately go over to ask. She said to her father, who did not notice her coming out, "Dad, I'm done here. I'll send Dr. Wei out first." Father Fu, who had changed into casual clothes, got up when he heard her. He walked over to Dr. Wei and asked seriously, "Doctor, what do you think of the situation?" Dr. Wei was a female nurse in charge of the high-end residential area. When she heard this, she answered even more seriously, "The situation is good, but it will take 7 consecutive days. However, Miss Yi said that her time is limited. When the time comes, I'll use the remaining few days of ointment and Miss Yi can find a friend to apply it on her own." "Okay, thank you for your hard work." Father Fu was slightly relieved. Large areas of her skin were red and her epidermis was peeling. His heart ached when he saw it, and he could only think of ways to relieve his daughter's pain. Chapter 45-59. On the way back from the airport, Yi Qian unintentionally turned her head and let Father Fu see the sunburn on the back of her neck. His heart ached so much that he sucked in a breath of cold air. Father Fu was not even in the mood to drive. He happened to pass by a temporary stop on the highway, so he immediately stopped the car and called the national healer who had been taking care of old Master Fu. The national healer recommended a Chinese medicine beauty care doctor. The doctor was not in Beijing, so she sent her disciple, Dr. Wei. Yi Qian drove Dr. Wei back. Father Fu looked at the military channel with a serious face. Yi Qian, who had noticed something was wrong from the beginning, walked over and sat beside Father Fu. She smiled and said, "Father, I already said it's a small problem. The doctor also said so. Why do you still look so serious?" "I thought about how I can't accompany you because I have to meet 2 guests tomorrow. I was just thinking about how to decline." Father Fu sighed and raised his hand to gently touch the back of Yi Qian's head. His kind eyes looked at the 3 different colors on Yi Qian's face, and his heart ached for her. Father Fu said, "Female soldiers are at a disadvantage compared to male soldiers. Have you ever considered retiring after a few years of service?" Father Fu really wanted to support his daughter's work, but when he saw the 3 different colors of sunburn on her face and the red and peeling sunburn on the back of her neck, he wanted to persuade Yi Qian to consider retiring for the first time. Yi Qian smiled and rested her head on Father Fu's shoulder. "Father, I won't consider it. I really like the military uniform I'm wearing, and I really like military life. I think that unless the military no longer needs me, I will definitely not choose to leave the military camp. Father, I'm really fine. It's just normal training. I can handle it, and I don't think it's hard. Besides, if I didn't join the military, I don't think I would have been able to find my way home, find you, find Grandpa, and find my family. Don't worry, I will take good care of myself. I won't let myself be too tired, and I won't let myself suffer. Don't worry about me." "Silly child, how can there be parents who don't worry about you? You are very independent, so independent that Dad sometimes doesn't know how to care about you." We haven't seen each other for more than 2 years. My daughter has grown up again. She's grown up to the point where Dad is both gratified and heartbroken. Other people's daughters are pampered, but our daughter has to take care of herself all by herself. Thank you for your hard work, my good daughter. Father Fu sighed and gently stroked the back of Yi Qian's head. The friends you're meeting tomorrow are 2 of my students. How about this? Don't you want to go shopping? Then Dad will change the meeting location to Shidong. It is said that Shidong is the favorite place for girls. Tomorrow morning, you and Dad will go out together. After Dad meets the students, I will come to find you. How about that? Of course, Yi Qian agreed. He agreed happily. She didn't expect that. Father Fu had other intentions. As for that phone call, Father Fu didn't tell Yi Qian about it, so Xia Jinyuan was still worried about it. The T6 combatants didn't dare to come in again, but they didn't say anything either. If the captain fell from his chair, it would damage the captain's dignity if word got out. He would bear with it for now. If he could say something, he would definitely say it. After all, it was better for everyone to enjoy this kind of thing than to enjoy it alone. Xia Jinyuan didn't care who saw him fall. He stared at his phone so intently that his phone was about to explode. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling as he let out a long sigh. He had gotten himself into big trouble tonight. His future father-in-law had hung up on him and didn't want to listen to his explanation at all. What was there to explain? At that time, he was dumbfounded and didn't think of an explanation. In a flash, he even came up with an idea: pretend that he wasn't him and pretend that he had called the wrong number. He really wanted to put on a show, but his future father-in-law had hung up on him several times. It was obvious that he knew who he was. Chapter 45-60. For the first time in his life, he was troubled. The trauma of being picked up by his future father-in-law was so great that he wanted to make another call to see if his girlfriend had any good ideas to save the situation, but he didn't dare to make the call. He was afraid that if his future father-in-law picked up the call, what should he say? Extreme joy begets sorrow, extreme joy begets sorrow. Ever since their relationship was made public, he had been riding high in the team. His days were great and everyone was pleasing to the eye. He even scolded people. In the team's words, he was like a spring breeze. Ha ha ha, like a spring breeze. Sorry, he was in the middle of a storm right now. I still have to make a call. There's a 50% chance that my future father-in-law will pick up the call, and the same goes for my baby. Hold on, let's do it. Taking a deep breath, Xia Jinyuan gripped his phone tightly with both hands. Summoning the courage and determination of his first battle, he pressed the answer button with his slender fingers and prepared to redial the number that he had just dialed. He and Yi Qian didn't save each other's numbers. They had long memorized each other's numbers, so it didn't matter if they saved each other's numbers or not. He clicked on the call log and was about to press the call button when the number that he was about to dial suddenly appeared on the screen. Xia Jinyuan's pupils constricted and his hands trembled. It's coming, it's coming. Who's on the other end? My future father-in-law? My baby? Don't panic, don't panic. Take a deep breath, take a deep breath, don't panic. My future father-in-law probably won't take the initiative to call me back after hanging up, so it should be my little fox. Taking another deep breath, Xia Jinyuan sat up straight and gently pressed the answer button. Summoning the seriousness of a meeting, he said seriously, "Hello." Yi Qian had a big question mark on his face. Did she dial the wrong number? That's impossible. Captain Xia knows his phone number so well. How is that possible? He glanced at the number that he had dialed. It was correct. Captain Xia probably didn't look at whose number it was before picking up the call. Captain Xia, it's me. The clear and light voice was like the sound of nature. The terrified and uneasy Lieutenant Colonel Xia only felt like 100 flowers were blooming around him, the light of spring disappearing. Wait, baby. Let me catch my breath. I need to catch my breath first. Pulling his two long legs under the desk, he leaned back against the office chair. With one hand pressed against his chest, Lieutenant Colonel Xia adjusted his breathing continuously before the tension in his heart dissipated. Yi Qian, who was lying on the bed and rubbing aloe vera ice cream on her face, sensed that something was wrong. She calmed herself down and thought about it. She vaguely guessed what was going on. She couldn't help but laugh. What did my dad say to you? How could the fearless demon king of chaos be so frightened? Aren't you quite brave? You're really thick-skinned. You shouldn't be so scared by my dad, right? Yi Qian wanted to see if Xia Jinyuan had replied to her message, so she took out her phone and glanced at it. Seeing that her mailbox was empty, she wanted to try contacting him. After pressing a few numbers, a group of numbers automatically appeared in her call log. Only then did she realize that Xia Jinyuan had contacted her half an hour ago, and the call had lasted for 36 seconds. At that time, she was in her room applying medicine to her shoulder. Her phone was in the living room, so Yi Qian knew that her father Fu had picked up the call. Seeing Xia Jinyuan's various reactions, Yi Qian could guess a little. Xia Jinyuan, who had calmed down, sighed and said, "I got into big trouble. Father-in-law picked up my call, and I said." Xia Jinyuan's face was full of worry as he recalled the words, "baby," that caused him to get into big trouble. Beside his ear, his girlfriend's stifled laughter could be heard. Chapter 45-61. Yi Qian really wanted to laugh out loud, but he felt that he wasn't being very nice, so he tried his best to hold it in until the clear balustrade on his face slid down. "Captain Xia." "Yes, yes, yes. Captain Xia." "Yes, cough. Don't laugh, be serious. Quick, give your boyfriend some ideas. I have to save my image." Xia Jinyuan could tell that Yi Qian was trying to hold back his laughter, and rubbed his temples helplessly. "I was so panicked just now that I didn't even have the courage to call again, and you're still laughing?" His first Waterloo in life. His future father-in-law asked, "Excuse me, who are you?" He even fell and was seen by At6. Oh right, the veteran who sneaked away when he saw that the situation wasn't good was At6. This kid dared to spread the news to the team, so he'll have to suffer. At the same time, he'll let his girlfriend put the blame on him in front of his girlfriend and see if he still dares to talk nonsense in the future. Lieutenant Colonel Xia had a way of dealing with people. Even when he was chasing Yi Qian back then, he would coax him all the way and remind Yi Qian not to get into a relationship at a young age. He would break up if he got into a relationship at a young age, that it wasn't suitable for him to get into a relationship at a young age, and that it would delay time. Lieutenant Colonel Xia had always done this before Yi Qian entered junior high school. When he reached senior high school, the conversation changed and it became a relationship at a young age. It wasn't a big deal, but he had to keep his eyes open and not casually choose someone. If he found someone bad, he would lose out. Someone like him wasn't bad. He wasn't worse than the hotheads in school. He wasn't lacking in education, looks, and ability. If he really wanted to find someone, he would be the priority. Actually, Father Fu wasn't wrong. That was how Lieutenant Colonel Xia coaxed Yi Qian to get his hands on him. He cast an inescapable net and got in every possible way. In the end, he succeeded in getting the beauty back. It also broke the hearts of many boys who secretly liked Yi Qian. They couldn't see any hope. But now, his troops had been defeated by his future father-in-law. The wise and mighty Lieutenant Colonel Xia was at a loss of what to do. He was very anxious inside. Why was Xia Jinyuan so anxious? It was simple. He had talked with his father Fu many times, and through his third brother Xiaoyui, he learned that although his future father-in-law served in a certain missile base in the northwest and was a soldier through and through, his father Fu was actually a scholar. Scholars had a common problem of stubbornness, especially when it came to Father Fu. It was very difficult for him to change his mind about someone or something he had set his mind on. and Yi Qian was Father Fu's only precious daughter. Her abduction at a young age had already made Father Fu feel uncomfortable. Now, the two families had only met, and the betrothal gifts had not even been completed. What Father Fu was he talking about? It would be strange if Father Fu did not feel angry. From Father Fu's perspective, Xia Jinyuan could understand. Calling my dad darling and father-in-law? Captain Xia, oh Captain Xia, didn't you see the text message I sent earlier? How am I supposed to save you now that you're in the line of fire? Yi Qian was not as nervous and worried as Xia Jinyuan. It couldn't be helped. Father Fu was her biological father, so there was no need for her to be nervous about him. Just like Captain Xia, he was not afraid of Commander-in-Chief Xia. From time to time, he was so scared that Commander-in-Chief Xia wanted to pull out his belt. He was his biological father, so he was not afraid. Xia Jinyuan sighed. I saw it, that's why I said it. Father-in-law even asked me who I was. I can feel his anger even from the base. My father-in-law has expressed more than once that he wants to keep you for a few more years, and then, I, the wolf, who took his heart away, pretended not to understand. I pretended to be stupid until he couldn't do anything about it. Now, darling, you have to think of a way for me. Chapter 45-62. Xia Jinyuan sighed again and again. His brows furrowed. He was at his wits' end. He had hit the nail on the head. He had really hit the nail on the head. It was a good idea to play dumb. More importantly, they kept mentioning that the elders in the family liked Little Fox very much and wanted to marry Little Fox as soon as possible. Every time they talked about whether they should keep her or marry her, his father-in-law's face was dark. Even old man Xia had said several times that he should not talk to Fu Gong about Yi Qian marrying into the family Xia. Not only would it not work, but it would also backfire. Now, with just one sentence, he was back to square one. Yi Qian could tell that he was really panicking. Lying on the bed, she felt so sweet that even the air was filled with sweetness. Don't panic, don't worry. With me around, your position is very, very stable. Don't forget, I said that I'll protect my man. Captain Xia, I'll definitely protect you. Because he loved her deeply, he cared. Because he cared, he panicked. This was a case of being blinded by a single leaf. Xia Jinyuan thought for a moment. After a while, Yi Qian heard him chuckling. I panicked for a moment. Father-in-law is indeed not a problem. As long as my little fox doesn't give up on me, no matter how angry he is, he will slowly calm down on account of his daughter. But I still have to talk to father-in-law. How about this? I'll prepare to contact father-in-law at 9 tomorrow night. I don't want him to be angry all the time. It's quite understandable to kidnap his precious kid. In the future, if our daughter is kidnapped by a rascal, I'll probably be as nervous as father-in-law and want to lock our daughter at home. Yi Qian snorted. They weren't even married yet and he was already thinking about having a daughter. I can't just rely on you to put in a good word for me. Father-in-law might even mistake me for an irresponsible person. No, little fox, I really have to think of a way to apologize. I can't let father-in-law think that I'm a rascal who doesn't know etiquette and is even more irresponsible. As they chatted, Xia Jinyuan, who was calm and collected, began to seriously think about how to redeem his image. He had to make his father-in-law and the old man feel satisfied with him and that he was a trustworthy person. From this, it could be seen how much Xia Jinyuan respected Father Fu and Old Master Fu. Because he loved Yi Qian deeply, he was willing to do everything for her, just so that the elders could rest assured and hand Yi Qian over to him. This wasn't making a mountain out of a molehill. It was a kind of attitude, and his respect made Yi Qian feel the warmth of being loved and pampered. For this warmth, for the sake of not wanting to disappoint his deep affection, she would not back out no matter how hard she was tired. He was the brightest and warmest light in her life. He had walked to her side when she was at her darkest, held her hand, and told her how to go on. If she left the warmth and the light, her world would be plunged into darkness again. The cold darkness would make her lose her way. Therefore, for his sake, she would not leave the army. As long as he was in the army, she vowed to stay with him. Don't worry, Captain Xia. My father is very satisfied with you. He just doesn't say it out loud. He's angry because you coaxed me away early and made him worry that I would marry you early. Why don't you tell my father that you can delay the wedding? I think my father will happily forgive you and recognize you as the son-in-law of the Fu family from now on. The corners of Yi Jian's mouth curled up as she comforted her man with a smile. It was quite rare to meet a helpless Captain Xia for the first time. Chapter 45-63. Xia Jinyuan didn't want to express his opinion. Marry her home later? No. He couldn't wait for Yi Qian to graduate on the day of her senior year and marry her family Xia the next day. But it was true that his future father-in-law was satisfied with him. As long as he was satisfied, everything could be discussed. The calm Xia Jinyuan looked at the time. After a while, it would be 12 o'clock in the evening. He gently said, "It's late, you should rest early." "That's not right, baby. Why are you with father-in-law? Did father-in-law come to Xiang City?" Colonel Xia, who had been panicking for more than half an hour, finally returned to normal and found the problem. Yi Qian then remembered that she didn't tell Captain Xia that she had returned home. The weather in Xiang City is hot. For the sake of the students of Xiang University, the 15-day military training was shortened by 5 days to 10 days. "I want to go back to the capital to see Uncle Chen. It just so happens that my dad also returned to the capital, so he personally came to the airport to pick me up. So that's how it is. Going back to the capital is also good. Do you plan to go to the southern province to see Uncle Chen? If you go, say hello to Uncle Chen for me." The smile on Xia Jinyuan's handsome face also converged a lot. The two of them were silent for a while. Both of their moods were very heavy. Yi Qian softly said, "Yes, I plan to go back to the southern province the day after tomorrow. Today, I want to go to the military headquarters directly to find the commander-in-chief. There hasn't been any news. I want to ask in person. I'm afraid the commander-in-chief won't tell me the truth over the phone." After a while, Xia Jinyuan replied, "That's good, but flying back and forth will make you a little tired." Uncle Chen's matter had passed for so long and there was still no news from the military headquarters. It would be good to let the little fox personally ask Old Man Xia. "It's late, Captain Xia. You should rest early. Training in the Gobi Desert is the most tiring for you. The sunburn on your face and back must be treated well, especially your back. Remember to apply medicine." Xia Jinyuan, who received his girlfriend's heartache, softened his eyes. "Got it. I will be serious and obedient. Take good care of myself. Good night, baby. Good night, my light." Yi Qian said softly and heard the sound of kissing. The corners of her mouth raised. Hearing him say good night, she reluctantly hung up the phone. If she didn't hang up early, he would definitely keep waiting. The next morning, Yi Qian still wanted to find an opportunity to tell Father Fu that she wanted to visit Uncle Chen. Father Fu seemed to know what Yi Qian was thinking. He gently rubbed Yi Qian's head and said softly, "Father will go with you to visit Uncle Chen in the morning." Yi Qian was cleaning up the bowls and chopsticks used for breakfast. Unexpectedly, a porcelain bowl slipped from her hand and fell onto the solid wood dining table with a clang. "Dad!" Her voice was very dry, like a rusty string that could no longer play a moving note. Father Fu silently picked up the trembling bowl and sighed. "Yesterday, I was at the military headquarters and had a chat with Commander-in-Chief Xia. I found out about your Uncle Chen's death. You didn't contact me or your grandfather and still insisted on returning to the capital. You also didn't contact family Xia. Yesterday, I guessed that you must have returned to the capital to visit your Uncle Chun. Daughter, I feel very guilty towards you. I didn't know anything about such a big incident. Even his father knew about it, but he didn't know anything about it. Yi Qian lowered her head. Her nose and eyes were extremely sore. You were on a mission and couldn't contact us. I never blamed you. You don't have to feel guilty towards me. Yi Qian sniffled. Her eyes were slightly red. She looked up at Father Fu and smiled. It's true, Dad. I never blamed you. Don't blame yourself. I plan to return to the southern province to visit Uncle Chen the day after tomorrow. Don't you have an appointment with your 2 students today? You don't have to accompany me. I want to go to the military headquarters to ask the Commander-in-Chief about the situation. I've changed my appointment to tomorrow. Today, I'll go with you to see Commander-in-Chief Xia. I'll go to the southern province with you the day after tomorrow. I should go and take a look. Let's go. Chapter 4564. Yi Qian didn't insist. Father Fu and Uncle Chen didn't see each other often, but because of Yi Qian's relationship, the two of them hit it off very well. They talked about politics, the nation's situation, and even more so about military intelligence. When the two fathers who wore the same military uniform met, they could talk all night and still not have enough. Uncle Chen's ashes were scattered in the Yellow River. Below the stone monument at the Southern Province Sniper Base's shooting range was an urn with a sniper rifle that Uncle Chen used for teaching. The Southern Province Sniper Base was Uncle Chen's home, and Uncle Chen's favorite sniper rifle was there as well. Yi Qian naturally chose to return to Southern Province to pay respects to Uncle Chen. Before flying to Southern Province, she planned to go to the military headquarters to ask about the progress, then fly to Southern Province to kneel in front of Uncle Chen's grave and tell him everything she knew. She wouldn't give up on finding the real culprit. Even if the real culprit wasn't a single person but an entire organization, she still wanted to avenge Uncle Chen with her own hands. Commander-in-Chief Xia was quite surprised to receive Yi Qian's call. When he found out that she was coming, Commander-in-Chief Xia paused for a few seconds. He roughly guessed the reason and sighed. Come on, girl. I happen to have some time in the morning. I'll take you to the National Defense University for a walk. The National Defense University had always been in charge of investigating Uncle Chen's assassination. Commander-in-Chief Xia also knew very little about it. Yi Qian gently pursed her lips. She knew that this matter put the Commander-in-Chief in a difficult position. Before she could say anything, Commander-in-Chief Xia smiled as if he could see Yi Qian's expression face to face. Don't feel embarrassed. I also want to know how it's going. Since you're here, you can come along and ask. Thank you. Then my father and I will come directly to the military headquarters to look for you? Or the National Defense University? There was some distance between the National Defense Headquarters and the military headquarters. It was not far from Beihai Park, so it was relatively closer to Dangui Garden. Thus, Commander-in-Chief Xia asked Yi Jian to wait for him at the National Defense Headquarters. Then, he chatted with Mr. Fu for a while before leaving for the National Defense Headquarters. Halfway through, Commander-in-Chief Xia contacted the Minister Xia of National Defense, who was also Xia Jinyuan's uncle, Xianghua. Although they were brothers, he still had to make an appointment before going there, in case the Minister Xia, whom he had just met last night, had to go out for some business. When Minister Xia found out that his niece-in-law was coming over, he hung up the phone and immediately called the person in charge of the investigation into Uncle Chen's case to come to his office. Commander-in-Chief Xia, Father Fu, and Yi Qian arrived. Minister Xia was already prepared. We highly suspect that Chen Dongfeng's case involves 2 major organizations, 2 old cases. In the conference room, Xia Ruijuan told Yi Qian all the useful information that the National Defense Headquarters had gathered. He didn't omit anything, but told him everything in great detail. Commander-in-Chief Xia's eyebrows twitched a few times because it was so detailed, and his expression became more serious. This was completely unlike the National Defense Headquarters style of work. Even when he had official business with the National Defense Headquarters before, his brother had never talked about it in such detail. He would only pick out a few key points that he wanted to know and send him away. It was too unusual for him to be so detailed this time. Yi Qian and Father Fu didn't have any dealings with the National Defense Headquarters, so they didn't know about it. They thought that Minister Xia only told them in detail because of his brother, Commander-in-Chief Xia, and because of their relationship with Xia Jinyuan. Chen Dongfeng carried out countless high-level missions and had countless enemies. I can't disclose the details of his missions. Back then, he secretly retired from the army because he was being watched by these two major organizations. They said that they would buy his head for $1 million. In the early 1990s and late 1980s, $1 million was a huge sum of money. After Chen Dongfeng was in danger several times back then, the military had no choice but to arrange for him to fake his death and retire from the army out of consideration for his safety. The next 20 years were peaceful. But when you were investigating Li Chuhai, the two major organizations that we investigated also began to take action. Therefore, we highly suspect that Chen Dongfeng's assassination is most likely related to these two organizations. Chapter 45-65. Yi Qian's eyes were filled with hostility, which made Father Fu tense up. He was afraid that his daughter would do something shocking. Minister Xia couldn't help but pay more attention to Yi Qian's cold and ruthless expression. Then he tore open a sealed leather envelope and took out 2 photos and handed them over. These 2 photos were of active international members of the 2 major organizations. Minister Xia handed the photos to Yi Qian and Father Fu respectively. These 2 people came from 2 different organizations. They have excellent assassination skills, but they didn't enter the country at that time. They were active in the war-torn country of Suli. Yi Qian took the photos and looked over. Her pupils constricted. The photo she took was of a mixed-race woman. She had green eyes and black hair. She was beautiful but also very dangerous. What was more dangerous was that she wore a silver bracelet on her right wrist, which was holding a wine glass. She also had a weapon that could be used as a bracelet to kill. This was also the first time she saw the same bracelet. Yi Qian suddenly remembered a mission in Lin Country. Kundan, who was from Lin Country, had told her not to show the bracelet on her wrist in front of the people of Lin Country and Japan. It would bring trouble to herself. After Kundan's reminder, she didn't show it easily. Even when she went abroad for missions, she only showed it at the last critical moment. She had never seen a bracelet like this before, but today she saw it on the woman in the photo. The person she took care of was also a woman. The same bracelet, the same woman, so they must be from the same organization. Yi Qian's gaze became colder and colder. Could it be that the identity of the 2 people she and Captain Xia worked together to kill was actually a disguise to confuse the public? Their real target was Uncle Chen, who was the principal of Fu Jun Town Middle School. She and Captain Xia took care of Principal Chen in advance by accident, so they didn't expose him? She felt a chill run down her spine. Yi Qian was still staring at the photo. Minister Xia signaled to the person in charge of Principal Chen's investigation with his eyes, and the person in charge of Yi Qian's investigation apologized and gestured for Yi Qian to pass the photo to her. Father Fu wanted to take a look at the photos in Yi Qian's hands, but Yi Qian quickly passed them over. Father Fu, who had not seen anything, passed the photos in his hands to Yi Qian and said, "Take note of them." Yi Qian nodded slightly. He took the photo and looked at it carefully. He remembered the foreign man in the photo before returning it. Minister Xia, who was sitting at the head of the table, put the photos back into the sealed bag. He looked straight at Yi Qian and said in his usual stern voice, Our National Defense Force is still investigating and has not given up. The National Defense Force hasn't given up on the investigation, but it's not something that can be found overnight. The National Defense Force has only found the tip of the iceberg of the two major organizations' huge route. However, even with such a small tip, progress is still very difficult. Little Yi, I can understand that you want to solve this as soon as possible, but are you sure that you are prepared for the dangers that you may face in the future? Think about it carefully, Uncle. Ahem, Commander-in-Chief Xia was halfway through the word uncle when he suddenly felt an itch in his throat. He let out a long cough. Father Fu glanced at Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was sitting opposite him. Minister Xia changed his words naturally. Think about what I said carefully. I hope you will remember it. Yi Qian's eyes moved slightly when her name was called. She quickly nodded with a solemn expression. I understand. Thank you, Minister Xia, for your reminder. I will remember it well and remind myself at any time. Chapter 4566. Very well, I still have something to do. See you next time. Minister Xia nodded and smiled subtly. He stood up and walked to Father Fu. His previous sternness was gone. He smiled and said, Mr. Fu, I'm sorry that I can't accompany you today. Minister Xia is too polite. I'm very grateful that you can take time out of your busy schedule to meet us. If there's a chance, I'll definitely have a good chat with Minister Xia. The elegant Father Fu replied with a smile. His tone was sincere and polite. Minister Xia's smile deepened. He extended his hand and gestured for Father Fu to leave first. He was polite and sincere. He was the father of his niece-in-law. As the uncle of the groom's family, he naturally had to show due respect. Yi Qian stood aside silently. She was the younger generation, so she should be the last to leave. When they walked out of the conference room, Minister Xia's bodyguard immediately walked over and saluted the three chiefs. After saluting, he said, Chief, the car is ready. Good. Minister Xia nodded slightly, then turned to Father Fu and said, I'll leave first. Excuse me. Take care. Minister Xia gave a certain amount of respect, so Father Fu naturally wouldn't be rude. They had a pleasant conversation. Although they were polite, they didn't seem unfamiliar. Commander-in-Chief Xia watched his eldest brother leave and couldn't help but smile. His eldest brother was also a busy man. It wasn't easy for him to take an hour out of his schedule. Commander-in-Chief, thank you and Minister Xia for today. Otherwise, my daughter and I wouldn't have been able to meet Minister Xia so easily. Thank you. Today was probably the day that Father Fu thanked him the most. Even if it was the family Xia, who was very likely to become his in-laws in the future, Father Fu didn't take it for granted. In-laws were a close family. If they didn't interfere, it was reasonable. It was his duty to help her. Father Fu was not a scholar who could not tell right from wrong. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want his in-laws to be so courteous with him. He smiled and said, Oh, you're too courteous. We're family, so there's no need to be so courteous. I promised Xiao Yi that I would get to the bottom of this. Now that everything is still shrouded in mystery, how could I give up halfway? I'll send you and Xiao Yi out first. How about we meet up at night? The old master and old madam at home still want Xiao Yi to come over to play. Good girls always let them remember. What else could Father Fu say? Naturally, he smiled and agreed. After walking out of the heavily guarded National Defense Building, Commander-in-Chief Xia was escorted out by Yi Qian. He also had official business to attend to, so like Minister Xia, he also took some time off. Yi Qian watched as Commander-in-Chief Xia's car completely disappeared from sight before returning to the car with Father Fu. After getting into the car, Father Fu's expression was slightly restrained as he said rather seriously, National Defense is investigating. The real culprit will be found one day. It's just that I don't understand why Minister Xia would mention that you will be in danger in the future. Is there something else he can't reveal? Father Fu didn't guess it, but Yi Qian guessed a little. Minister Xia deliberately showed her the photo, and then took it back in time. The meaning behind it was very clear. He told her that she had already met up with one of the two organizations. Afraid that Father Fu would be worried, Yi Qian smiled and said, "Don't think too much." Minister Xia saw that I kept chasing after him. He was worried that I would act on my own initiative and bring trouble to myself. That's why he reminded me. There's nothing like what you said. Of course, there was something hidden, but it wasn't convenient to say it out loud. Yi Qian lowered his eyes slightly and lowered the corners of his lips slightly. Father Fu felt a little uneasy. Even his expression became cold. After a while, he said, "No, what he said makes me very worried. We have to ask him clearly." Chapter 45-67. Dad, you're thinking too much, really too much. What danger could I possibly be in? My social circle is only so big. I've been training in the military academy and the army. Other than that, I rarely even return home. What danger could I possibly be in? It's precisely because I'm not in any danger now that Minister Xia asked me if I was prepared to face future dangers. He was reminding me not to investigate on my own because I don't have the ability to face future dangers. That's why I came back to thank Minister Xia for his advice. I'll remember it well and remind myself at all times. Can't you see that Minister Xia is saving face for your daughter? After Yi Qian explained it this way, Father Fu felt that it made sense. Could he really be thinking too much? Dad, can you accompany me shopping? You haven't gone shopping with me yet. Yi Qian was really afraid that Father Fu would continue to think too deeply, so she quickly changed the topic. Father Fu fell for this trick and immediately smiled. Sure, don't save money for Dad today. Buy whatever you want. Dad can even let you keep my salary card. Yi Qian laughed. I rarely use my own salary card. If you give it to me, it'll probably be covered in dust too. That's true. After saying that, Father Fu also laughed heartily, instantly sweeping away the heavy atmosphere in the car. The father and daughter chatted and laughed as they went to Xidan. On the other side, Commander-in-Chief Xia and Minister Xia were talking on the phone. National Defense isn't even sure if the two major organizations know about it. Then you still have to remind Xiao Yi to be more careful. Minister Xia, who was sitting in the car, spoke in a more serious tone than the meeting room. A few years ago, she already had a life-and-death battle with a member of the organization. I've already reminded her and specially picked a photo of a member of the organization that she could see the problem with. I carefully observed her performance and her subsequent answers. I can confirm that this child understands. You can remind her again individually. Don't act on your own and make decisions on your own. It's not a small matter if you get into trouble. In the worst case, he might lose his life on the spot. Commander-in-Chief Xia, whose expression was solemn and his military aura was so strong that even the driving guard was nervous, said in a deep voice, "Okay, I've already invited the in-laws to the old mansion as guests. When I'm done with my work, I'll immediately return to the old mansion. I'll definitely talk to the child alone." Well, you still have to pay attention to your in-laws. They are not people you can easily fool. All right, I'll make the necessary arrangements. Tonight, I'll try my best to find time to go back to the old house and accompany our family Xia's in-laws with you. Xiao Yi, I like you very much. Sixth brother is not in the capital. As his father, you must not be a burden. Treat him well. Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't help but laugh at his eldest brother's advice. Even though they were all old, their eldest brother was still as worried as he was when he was young. He would always give them advice whenever something happened. The two brothers chatted for a while before hanging up. Father Fu and Yi Qian went home and changed into casual clothes before heading straight to Xidan. When they arrived at Xidan, Yi Qian was dazzled by the sight and didn't know where to start. Father Fu was even more surprised than Yi Qian. Looking at the bustling Xidan, he laughed and said, I haven't been to Shidon for 6 years. I have to look for a shopping mall. When they arrived at Shidon, the last thing they needed to look for was a shopping mall. There were rows upon rows of buildings on both sides of the street. Yi Qian wanted to make it quick like before, but Father Fu disagreed. He had to choose carefully. If he didn't understand something, he would seriously ask the salesperson, which made the salesperson very envious. Father Fu didn't understand and couldn't make up his mind, so he asked Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who was even more clueless, called Suwon. When Suwon found out that Yi Qian was actually in the capital and in Shidon, she immediately said that she wanted to come over. Yi Qian said, "My father will accompany me," which made Suwon give up. Chapter 45-68. Suwon, who didn't come out, became Yi Qian's consultant. She casually told them which brands were good and which ones were suitable for them, making Yi Qian gasp in amazement. Probably because it was Yi Qian's first time shopping for all kinds of skincare products, Suwon didn't notice Yi Qian's mistake. When she said, "My dad is accompanying me," Jing and Suwon knew that Yi Qian's parents had passed away. Father Fu bought all the products that Suwon recommended. "This is good. If your comrade says it's good, then it must be good. I'll buy it all." Facial cleanser? It's okay for bathing too. Do you want more? Water? Cooling skin? If you can use it on your face, then you can use it on your body too. You still have to go out of school to train. Buy more bottles. For all the products that Suwon recommended, Father Fu didn't pay for them one by one, but for a few bottles. Sometimes when Yi Qian was distracted, Father Fu would have already taken the sales slip and lined up to pay the bill. "Miss, your dad is so good to you. He's so generous. He's afraid that you're useless. You're so lucky to have such a good dad." The salesperson was even happier. Facial cleanser for bathing and toner for bathing. She really hoped to meet more rich customers like this. Yi Jian was distracted again. She didn't hear what the other party said at all until the other party handed over a heavy bag. She woke up with a start and stared at the bag with several bottles. She said in surprise, "Is there a mistake? I don't want so many. 1 bottle of each will do. Why did you pack so many for me?" "Miss, you were standing here just now. Are you a blockhead who didn't hear anything?" the salesperson said in her heart, then smiled and explained again. Yi Qian was dumbfounded. She really didn't listen just now. She was thinking about the photos and Uncle Chun. "Can I return it? Just return it." No. Dad bought it all. No refunds." Father Fu, who came back from paying the bill, interrupted in time. The salesperson's stiff smile returned to her. "Thank you for your patronage. We look forward to your next visit. Take care." The salesperson sent the big customer away with a smile and turned to chat with her colleagues. She said that her colleagues were envious of her having such a good dad. After shopping for a while, Yi Qian said that she was tired recently and wanted to sleep. Father Fu didn't doubt the sunburn on Yi Qian's body. After shopping's T.S. During dinner, Suwon mentioned to her parents that Yi Qian was also in Beijing. When Father Su heard this, he immediately said, "What a coincidence. You can contact her later and ask if she's free tomorrow. Your mother and I will treat her to a meal to thank her for taking care of you all these years." Suwon's parents knew very well that Suwon couldn't have gotten to where she was today without her roommate, Yi Qian's help. If it weren't for Yi Qian, Suwon wouldn't be where she was today. Mother Su looked at her daughter, who was becoming more and more outstanding and responsible by the day. She smiled kindly and said, "Her parents have passed away. You should take care of her more often. You can't always let little Yi take care of you. Can you ask her out tomorrow? Dad and Mom must thank her properly for all the help she has given you over the years. It's all thanks to her that you are where you are today." Suwon, who was picking up food, nodded and smiled. "Okay, I'll contact her later to see if she's free tomorrow." Dad, Mom, don't think that Jane Eyre's parents. That's not right. Chapter 4569. No, that's not right. Mother Sue was stunned. What's not right? What are you thinking of now? Suewon didn't answer. She narrowed her eyes and tried to recall every word she said to Yi Qian. My dad will accompany me. Yi Qian had said that at that time, so she gave up the idea of going shopping with him. Dad, Mom, I'm done. Enjoy your meal. Suewon hurriedly stuffed the food she picked up into her mouth. Without waiting for the elders to say anything, she put down her chopsticks and ran back to her room. Both parents had passed away. Then who was the dad that Yi Qian mentioned today? No, she had to find out. Her curiosity was completely aroused. Mother Sue saw this and sighed. She said to Father Sue, "Look at this child. She doesn't want to be praised at all. I just praised her for being more mature. Look, she's like a child again. You're just too demanding. Wonwon has improved a lot. Don't be too harsh on her." Father Sue doted on his daughter. He put some food in Mother Sue's bowl with a smile. Eat. After dinner, let's go for a walk as a family. You're spoiling her. Mother Sue glared at her husband. In return, her husband pretended to be stupid and smiled. It couldn't be helped. Father Sue didn't come home all year round. Naturally, he had to dote on his daughter who he rarely saw. Yi Qian was chatting with Master Xia and Madame Family Xia at the old mansion. When the two elders found out that their granddaughter-in-law was coming to the old mansion tonight, they were overjoyed. They had already instructed the family to prepare in advance for fear of neglecting their granddaughter-in-law. They also told Commander-in-Chief Xia to come home tonight to have a drink with his in-laws. Don't get drunk, just a little bit of strength will do. Commander-in-Chief Xia and Minister Xia entered the house one after another. Father Fu and Yi Qian had already started chatting with Family Xia's parents about half an hour earlier. After dinner, they all went to the garden behind the Xia residence. Enjoying the cool breeze from Beihai Park, they slowly strolled, smiled, and chatted. The whole time, they were full of laughter and laughter. Old Madame Xia's knee was injured when she was young, so she could not walk for long. She walked around the back garden and then went to the octagonal pavilion to rest. When Suewon called, Yi Qian was talking and laughing with the elders. Worried that Yi Qian would be too embarrassed to speak, old Madame Fu said, "Young people need to have their own social circle. You can't spend all your time with us old people. My dear grandson, go and chat with your friends. We'll chat among ourselves." Yi Qian liked the elders in his family very much. Old Master Fu, Master Xia, and old Madame Xia were all kind elders who always thought of the younger generation. They were wise, knowledgeable, tolerant, and had a positive and optimistic heart. Unlike the old madam of the Yi family, who used her own selfish desires to control the children in the family, she didn't even let go of the younger generation. Holding the phone, Yi Qian stood up. Under the gentle gazes of the elders, he walked a little further away and picked up Suewon's call. He picked up the phone and only said one word, "Hello." Suewon said, "Little Jane Eyre, which father are you with today?" Yi Qian raised his eyebrows. When did this little girl become so smart? He was so happy at the time that he blurted it out. When she didn't ask about it, he thought she didn't take it to heart. He didn't expect her to call to ask about it at night. She pondered for a while, thinking about how to answer Suewon. Suewon said again, "Is it not convenient to say?" "If it's not convenient to say, then pretend I didn't ask." Suewon, who thought things through, suddenly felt there was no need to ask clearly. Anyway, their little Jane Eyre wouldn't do anything bad. Yi Qian smiled and said, "It's not inconvenient. I just don't know how to say it. I mentioned my father to you before. At that time, you and Jingjing mistook him for godfather, so I didn't explain." Chapter 4570. Since Suewon had asked, Yi Qian didn't plan to hide anything. He just went straight to the point. "He's not my godfather, but my biological father. It's a little complicated, but it's all about the elders. If it's too complicated, I can't explain it in a few words. You just need to know that my dad is my biological father. Soo-won, who was hiding in the room on the phone, was already dizzy. It's really complicated. I don't plan to ask anymore. I'm afraid I'm not smart enough. As long as you know that your dad is your biological father, we can talk about the rest later. That was Yi Qian's family matter. Even if she was a good friend, she shouldn't ask about the details. She just needed to know the most important part. Soo-won, who had always had a high EQ, stopped asking and quickly changed the topic. Little Jian-er, my parents know that you're in the capital and want to ask you out for a meal. I wonder if you have time to do me the honor. Tomorrow, she really didn't have time. I'm sorry, Wen-zi. I haven't seen my dad in a long time. I've only been back in the capital for 2 days. Tomorrow, I want to accompany my dad to meet his students. I'll be leaving the capital the day after. So soon? That's because you don't have time. Okay, I'll let my parents know. We'll have plenty of chances to have a meal together. Soo-won smiled and didn't insist. The two of them laughed and chatted for a while before ending the call. Turning around, Yi Qian saw his uncle, Minister Xia, who was supposed to be resting in the pavilion, walking towards him. Yi Qian was about to walk over when Minister Xia waved his hand, gesturing for her to stay where she was. His niece-in-law, who used to be a special forces soldier, answered the phone from a well-hidden position, suitable for chatting. Yi Qian knew that his uncle had something to say to him, and it was very likely to be about the photos he saw during the day. Minister Xia was indeed talking about the photos. He didn't say anything as he approached. Yi Qian greeted him, "Uncle." Minister Xia smiled and went straight to the point. "I'm sure you know what I'm going to say. When you were in junior high, you fought with members of the organization. You even cooperated with Old Six to take care of 2 members. One of the female members' assassination weapon was in your possession." At the mention of the silver thread, Yi Qian felt a chill down her spine and interrupted Minister Xia. "Uncle, that's because I liked it." She didn't want Xia Jinyuan to be punished. She didn't want him to be punished, so she quickly took the blame for stealing the evidence. After all, she was still a student at the time. If it was her fault, she would at most be severely criticized. However, Captain Xia was different. Department Head Xia raised his hand and stopped Yi Jian from continuing. "I know what you want to say. Now is not the time to blame, but to tell you that the organization has never given up on looking for Chen Dongfeng. Many years ago they found Anyang, which proved that they were on the right track. Later, they were killed by you and Sixth Brother, which made them mistakenly think that their actions were exposed, so they immediately stopped and went into hiding. Or do you have your own opinion?" Yi Qian lowered her head. The atmosphere around her suddenly became gloomy, and sadness flowed out from her eyes. "Uncle, I've always wondered why Uncle Chen suddenly came to Beijing from the sniper base without alerting anyone. Before this, I didn't understand why Uncle Chen wanted to come to Beijing even though he knew it was dangerous. It wasn't until I saw the photos at your place this morning that I think I understand why Uncle Chen suddenly wanted to come to Beijing and why he didn't want to alert anyone. It's because of me. It's all because of me." Chapter 45-71. After leaving the National Defense University, Yi Qian's mood had been very heavy. Even when she went shopping, she was not in the mood. Otherwise, she would not have been distracted and found that Father Fu had bought a few bottles of everything. It was probably because she had been distracted thinking about the person in the photo and seeing the same silver thread again in a few years. In the end, she found an excuse to tell Father Fu that she was tired and wanted to go home. She had been thinking about it all this time. Even when she went home and shut herself in her room, she still thought about it. Finally, she connected the dots and found the key to why Uncle Chen came to the capital. If it were not for her, Uncle Chen would never come to the capital. Never. Tears fell like beads from a broken necklace, drop by drop splashing onto the ground. Yi Qian, who did not raise her head, was choked with sobs. Because of me, Uncle Chen came to the capital. If it were not for me, Uncle Chen would never come to the capital. Because many years ago, Captain Xia and I took care of the members of the organization. These people might have found out about me and my relationship with Uncle Chen. So, they threatened Uncle Chen and forced Uncle Chen to leave the sniper base and come to the capital. It's all because of me. Uncle Chen came to the capital because of me. Afraid of disturbing the elders in the pavilion, Yi Qian even held back her tears. Her voice was sorrowful. The overwhelming pain made Minister Xia close his eyes. The daughter-in-law that old Six found with a family Xia was indeed extraordinary. He should have known that a girl who could subdue old Six's personality was not ordinary. He knew that this child was powerful, and now he knew that he had underestimated her. She was like a bamboo in a crooked stream, as quiet as an orchid in the spring breeze. This child was elegant and pleasant. A photo, a past, and a reminder from him were all connected by her. Finally, she thought of the National Defense University, the cause of the incident that they had investigated for a long time. The reason why Chen Dongfeng had entered the capital without alerting anyone was indeed because he did not want to see Yi Qian, whom he had raised like his own daughter, in any danger. He didn't want to alarm anyone because he knew that if he told anyone, he wouldn't be able to enter the capital. At the same time, Yi Qian would stop him. But he also knew that it was very likely that he would be in danger, so he needed someone to know in time. So he pretended to run into an instructor who had come to the capital for business. The two of them entered the capital together and walked out of the train station. However, Chen Dongfeng did not expect that the members of the organization who wanted to assassinate him had already set up an ambush nearby. They were just waiting for him to come out and take action immediately. They did not even think about meeting him. The world-class sniper king had fallen just like that, and the military had lost a good general. How could they not be angry? However, the members of the two major organizations were all skilled, and their whereabouts were uncertain. It was also unknown how many members there were in the organizations, so it was not easy to find the culprit. Even if it wasn't easy, they still had to investigate. They had to find the culprit and eliminate the culprit. Only then would they be able to intimidate the two major organizations. Minister Xia, who was standing with his hands behind his back, did not immediately speak. His niece-in-law in front of him had probably thought of the crux of the matter long ago and had been suppressing her emotions. It was fine if she cried now. Crying was also a way to relieve her emotions and release her pressure. In order to protect me, Uncle Chen had no choice but to leave the sniper base. Perhaps he could have taken care of those people himself, so he came to the capital alone. In the end, perhaps he was afraid that these people would continue to stay in the country, so he purposely traveled with a sniper instructor who had come to the capital for business. Yi Qian covered her face in pain and sobbed softly. Scalding hot tears flowed out from between her fingers and wet the back of her hands. Actually, Uncle Chen was also prepared to die at the beginning, but he didn't want to die quietly like this. He wanted the members of the organization who killed him to continue to stay. He needed someone by his side. Chapter 45-72. Before Uncle Chen left, he told me over and over again not to avenge him and not to put myself in danger. Actually, what Uncle Chen wanted to say was that everything would end with his death, and everything would end with his departure. I was too stupid. I didn't immediately think of the crux of the matter. I thought that Uncle Chen simply didn't want me to avenge him. I was too stupid. If I had known earlier that Uncle Chen secretly entered the capital because of me, perhaps the National Defense investigation would have been faster. Perhaps they would have already started taking action. Yi Qian had never understood why Principal Chen would enter the capital. The moment she saw the photo, she couldn't help but guess in a bad direction until she finally understood. Minister Xia sighed softly. "You're wrong, child. You're not stupid. You just didn't know how deep the enemy was, and you didn't know that he had never given up. Even if you guessed that he entered the capital because of you, the National Defense doesn't have the ability to immediately connect the dots with the case from a few years ago. Child, you're not stupid, not at all. In fact, you're too smart. Even your uncle was shocked. Extreme wisdom is bound to hurt. Your uncle would rather you be a little stupid. That way, your heart won't be burdened with so many shackles, and you won't tire yourself out. I only wanted to remind you that you could also be in danger. Now it seems that your uncle was very wrong. I shouldn't have given you the photo. I only wanted to remind you to be careful in the future, but I didn't want you to cry so sadly." Minister Xia was somewhat regretful. He had underestimated Yi Qian's sensitivity. He had underestimated Yi Qian's sharp analysis of the incident, which had led to the current situation. "No, uncle. I'm very grateful. Thank you for letting me see the photo." Yi Qian raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes and cheeks. She looked up at Minister Xia with reddened eyes. Her voice was like a trembling piano string. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known that Uncle Chen was assassinated because of me. Thank you, uncle. Truly, thank you." With that, Yi Qian bowed deeply. Minister Xia hurriedly stepped forward and helped Yi Qian up with both hands. "Child, get up quickly. It's eldest uncle's fault for making you so sad. Don't cry anymore. What's done is done. Since you have the heart to seek justice for him, you should take care of yourself. Moreover, you may not be very safe right now, so you should know what you should do. Let's not talk about anything else. First of all, you have to see if you can stand up and fight for Uncle Chen when the time comes. Can you come back safely? Child, the dead are gone, and the living have many more things to do. You need to be calm and not regret, understand?" Yi Qian engraved each and every one of his words into his heart. Yi Qian wiped his tears, washed his face with a handkerchief, and took out some ice to apply to his eyes. It was only when Minister Xia nodded that Yi Qian returned to the pavilion. In the pavilion, when Commander-in-Chief Xia saw Yi Qian return, he knew that his eldest brother had settled the matter and left. Father Fu secretly restrained his gaze. He could see that his daughter Yi Qian's emotions were fluctuating, but he just had to come in with a slight smile. Father Fu couldn't tell what was going on, but he felt a little uneasy. His intuition told him that his daughter was hiding something from him. When it was time to return to Dangui Garden, Yi Qian sat down and chatted with the two elders for a while. Then he followed Father Fu and left Family Xia's old residence. Commander-in-Chief Xia stood at the gate with the two stone lions until the car drove out with its taillights on. As the car drove out, Commander-in-Chief Xia immediately called Minister Xia. Commander-in-Chief Xia was silent for a long time when he found out that his daughter-in-law had guessed the cause of the incident. Chapter 4573. Remind sixth brother that Xiao Yi is a loyal and righteous child. She might hurt herself. Ask him to counsel her more and not blame himself too much. I was careless. I didn't expect this child to be so smart. Commander-in-Chief Xia smiled bitterly. Big brother, you were careless, and I was even more surprised. I knew sixth brother's wife was smart, but this time, she showed me her talents again. Xiao Yi, don't worry. I'll ask sixth brother to counsel her more. If there's any situation with the national defense, please let me know in advance. Okay, I'll let you know if there's any situation. It's getting late. Take care of the two elders and rest. Minister Xia hung up the phone and rested his head against the pillow with his eyes closed. Although progress was difficult, there was still progress. Now, the national defense needed to hurry up and investigate whether Xiao Yi was targeted. The street lights outside flashed past the car quickly. The half-light made Minister Xia's expression even more unclear. He kept his eyes closed until he got out of the car. Dangue Garden was a short distance away. On the way back, Father Fu asked Yi Qian again if she had any problems and if she could share them with him. Yi Qian hid it from him like a spoiled child. She even said that if he didn't believe her, he could immediately contact the Commander-in-Chief, Minister Xia. Seeing that Father Fu wasn't completely convinced, Yi Qian finally said in a low voice, "Dad, I'm thinking about Uncle Chen. I'm sad. There are also 2 major organizations. I don't know what the national defense will do." At this point, Father Fu finally believed her. Brother Chen's death was indeed a hurdle in his daughter's heart. Father Fu lowered his voice and kindly advised, "Tomorrow we'll go visit your Uncle Chen. I believe he also hopes that you can go there happily. You don't have to worry about it now. It's obvious that you're unhappy. Be happy when you go there the day after tomorrow. Your Uncle Chen can rest assured in the afterlife. As for your mother, the plane tickets are tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll go visit your mother tomorrow afternoon. How about that?" Yi Qian saw that Father Fu did not ask any more questions. She did not want Father Fu to worry, so she heaved a sigh of relief and immediately nodded. "Okay, let's go visit Mom tomorrow and talk to her." The father and daughter then arranged their schedule for the next day. At 8 o'clock the next morning, Yi Qian and Father Fu left Dangue Garden together. Because Yi Qian had only prepared a long-sleeved military uniform when he came to the capital, Father Fu regretted not buying Yi Qian a few sets of casual clothes when he went shopping yesterday. Yi Qian, who was wearing a long-sleeved military uniform, smiled and said, "Civilian clothes are the same as salary cards. When you buy them, you realize that the season is over before you can even put them on. It's good to wear a military uniform. It makes me feel more at ease." He was used to wearing military uniforms and camouflage suits all year round. If he had to wear casual clothes one day, he would feel particularly uncomfortable. Even walking felt strange. Now that he was wearing a long-sleeved military uniform and a female military cap, Yi Qian felt that it was just right. Father Fu, who was also used to military uniforms, could understand his daughter and did not say anything else. However, he was worried that his 2 students would not wear casual clothes. When they arrived at the designated tea room and pushed open the wooden door, Father Fu knew that his worries were unnecessary. The 2 students who arrived early were also wearing long-sleeved military uniforms. The difference was that they had military ranks, while Yi Qian had military epaulets. The 2 students knew that their teacher would bring his daughter over last night. When they saw Yi Qian, they were not surprised. The only thing that surprised them was that they did not know that their teacher had a daughter until last night. Didn't they say that their teacher's wife died young and did not have any children? How did a daughter suddenly appear? They even guessed that she might be an adopted daughter. She was definitely not an adopted daughter. The female student who came in looked very much like their teacher. One look and they knew that she was his biological daughter. She was also very beautiful. Chapter 45-74. Father Fu's 2 students were young and were from the capital. They were about 27 or 28 years old. Their facial features were regular, and they could be considered handsome. Like Father Fu, they had been in and out of the laboratory for many years, so their skin was slightly pale. They were also very calm and they spoke very politely. It was obvious that they came from well-educated families. They were both graduate students, and after being assigned to a base in the northwest, they had been taught by Father Fu. Father Fu thought highly of their abilities and character. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Yi Qian along. Other than Yi Qian, who was a little surprised when she first came in, when Father Fu introduced the 3 of them to each other, the 2 of them called Yi Qian junior sister. Teacher's daughter could be considered a younger sister. As they talked, Yi Qian could tell from their words and actions that they respected Father Fu's father. They also took good care of her, their junior sister. It wasn't that they were trying to curry favor or make her uncomfortable, but they would talk about topics that Yi Qian could participate in at the appropriate time. They didn't leave Yi Qian out in the cold. As they chatted, Yi Qian found out that the two of them had arrived a week ago to attend a briefing. However, they didn't talk about the specific report. Father Fu had invited them out purely to chat, and didn't mention anything about the base at all. When it came to the topic of missiles, it was all about what foreign countries had developed and what projects they had started. Yi Qian, who had never been in this field before, didn't understand at all, but she listened with great interest. Because this was a field that she didn't usually have access to and didn't understand. Junior sister, you seem very interested. Are you planning to change your field of study? One of the students, whose surname was Xiao, asked Yi Qian with a smile. He also joked, "Teacher, I'm afraid you'll miss it." Yi Qian hurriedly shook her head with a smile. No. It's because I've never been in this field before, so I'm very curious. I don't have the courage to change fields. A son inheriting his father's legacy is a good story. Another student with the surname Jean joined in the banter. They could tell that Yi Qian had taken after their teacher's easygoing personality, but they didn't want her to feel bored listening to the banter alone, so they decided to join in the banter to liven up the atmosphere. Father Fu laughed and said, "Don't make fun of my daughter, she is shy and can't stand your teasing." Father Fu, who was speaking, looked at Yi Qian with a kind smile. "I brought her out to broaden her horizons. There's always someone better than you. Don't always think that your boyfriend is the best. Come out. Actually, there are many good men out there." The two students chuckled when they heard this. Although they knew that their teacher would bring their junior sister here last night, they never thought of anything else. What son-in-law? That was impossible. Their teacher himself rarely returned home once a year or two. He knew very well that he had let down his family a lot. How could he bear to let his daughter find a husband who also didn't return home? As for why their teacher suddenly brought up bringing their junior sister to meet them, they thought that their junior sister wanted to learn more about their teacher's life in the base. That was why they had been talking about their teacher earlier. Their junior sister had listened very seriously and was very interested. Only now did they realize that it wasn't what they thought. Their teacher, was worried that their junior sister would care too much about her boyfriend and cause herself to be at a disadvantage. "Junior sister, I won't hide it from you. There are many outstanding young men in our base. The two of us are considered average. Thanks to our teacher's kindness, we were able to show off our skills in front of junior sister." Chapter 45-75. The student surnamed Xiao was an extrovert, and his speech was not as restrained as the student surnamed Jean. He belonged to the humorous type. After knowing Father Fu's intentions, he very considerately stood on Father Fu's side, which made Father Fu extremely satisfied. The student surnamed Jean filled Yi Qian's cup with tea and said with a smile, "Junior sister is very outstanding. Junior sister's boyfriend must be extraordinary. Teacher is actually very satisfied with junior sister's boyfriend, right? You're just a little unhappy that a stinky man coaxed junior sister away too early, right?" This really hit the nail on the head of Father Fu. Wasn't that the case? He smiled and said, "The two of you should teach your junior sister well. Don't let her be complacent. Let her broaden her horizons." As for why Father Fu insisted on bringing Yi Qian out to meet his students, it was actually very simple. He just wanted to broaden Yi Qian's horizons and let her come into contact with more outstanding men. Through this, she would know more about the kind of man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. He didn't deny that family Xia's sixth brother was very outstanding. He was definitely one of the best. Furthermore, his life experience was far richer than Yi Qian's. In terms of handling matters, he was also more mature than Yi Qian. As a father Fu, he didn't want his daughter to be at a disadvantage in these aspects. He hoped that the two of them could always stand in a position of fairness, equality, and even the breadth of their horizons. He hoped that they could treat each other's feelings with a more mature attitude. He only hoped that his daughter could always rely on her own excellence to remain undefeated. Even if the two of them were separated due to various reasons, his daughter wouldn't stay in a relationship and wouldn't lose herself because of it. This was what a father should teach his daughter: self-respect, self-reliance, and the freedom to make a decision without any hesitation. Only in this way could she have her true self. As for Yi Qian, facing Father Fu's two students teasing her, she pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Senior brothers, you're too modest. You're the real dragons and phoenixes among men, the pillars of the country. Come, let me use tea in place of wine to toast you too." Father Fu smiled and patted Yi Qian's head. He chided, "Using tea in place of wine, where did you learn the habits of the Jianghu? The two of them are also from the capital city. Today, I brought you out to show you that there are many outstanding men in Siju City other than the boy from the Xia family. Secondly, I wanted them to meet you. If you can't find me in the future, you can find me through them." Other than that, Father Fu really did not have any other intentions. Family Xia was kind and generous. Could it be that he was unkind because his family Xia had taken advantage of him? Fu Yuxing couldn't bring himself to be stabbed in the back. The two students took this opportunity to save Yi Qian's phone number. In the future, as long as Yi Qian contacted them, they could immediately inform the teachers who could not answer the phone. The two of them weren't like their teacher, who couldn't come out for many days after entering the laboratory. After all, they hadn't completely come into contact with the core. Yi Qian naturally memorized their phone numbers. In the future, if anything happened, she would have two more ways to contact Father Fu. The four of them didn't separate until they finished their lunch together. On the way to the cemetery, Father Fu asked Yi Qian with a smile, "What do you think of my two students? What do you think of them in terms of character, knowledge, and style of conversation?" "I don't dare to comment on their knowledge. You have high standards, so they must be very knowledgeable. As for their character, they are very good at taking care of people. They have high EQ and IQ, and their style of conversation is very polite. They should be from families with good upbringing." Yi Qian gave a very pertinent answer. She indeed thought so. Chapter 4576. At a red light, Father Fu slowly stepped on the brakes to stop the car. After pulling the handbrake, Father Fu said to Yi Qian seriously, "Daughter, family Xia, I admit that you are very outstanding, but you can't lose your circle of friends because of this. I think that every time you come back to Beijing, other than going to family Xia, you're always at home. You don't even send a message to your private phone number. I think it's too quiet. I hope that you can meet more outstanding people, men and women, old and young. The more outstanding people you meet, the better it will be for you to improve. When you see the shining points of outstanding people, you will unconsciously raise your expectations of yourself. You will become more outstanding and more confident. You will also become more mature when dealing with people. I hope that you are outstanding enough and confident enough. Even if you lose everything one day, you will still be the outstanding person who can make a comeback and fight for glory again." This was the deepest instruction from an outstanding father to his daughter. It was a fatherly love that was as deep as the sea and as majestic as the mountain. Yi Qian nodded vigorously after hearing this. She would definitely be like this. If a mother taught her daughter to be gentle, kind, and calm, then a father would definitely teach his daughter to be independent, confident, and strong. Yi Qian was unfortunate when she was young, but she was lucky enough to start over. Finally, under the guidance of her parents, she completely abandoned the unfortunate Yi Qian from before and became the outstanding Yi Qian today. Kneeling in front of the tomb, Yi Qian respectfully kowtowed 3 times to her mother. Because of old Manli, martyr Sun Xueqing's photo was not placed on the tombstone. Father Fu carefully kept it at home. Now, only the words, Martyr Sun Xueqing's tomb, were engraved below the tombstone. Husband Yi Qian and daughter Yi Qian were engraved. I'm sorry, Hongmei. I wanted to put the photo up early, but the Li family is too deep. Old man Li is very cautious and it's difficult to explain everything one by one. Please forgive me. I also hope that your spirit in heaven can ensure our daughter's safety and smooth sailing. Father Fu said in a low voice as he placed the white flowers in front of the grave. Decades had passed, but his love had not faded. Even though the beauty had passed away early, his love was still deep. The love between Fu Yuxing and Sun Xueqing represented an era. They had experienced the joys and sorrows of separation. After leaving the cemetery, Father Fu's mood was even heavier than Yi Qian's. Yi Qian even comforted Father Fu, telling him not to worry and not to harm his health. Father Fu smiled and didn't say anything. The woman he loved the most had already gone to another world, taking away all of his love. From then on, he would never see the sun of spring again. Regardless of whether it was like this or not, he had protected their love for the rest of his life, and had not been tainted. At 10 o'clock in the evening, just as Yi Qian was about to go to bed, he received a call from Commander-in-Chief Xia. Commander-in-Chief Xia had already left the capital and arrived at the Nanguang military district at 6 o'clock in the evening. He was calling to tell Yi Qian that Father Fu had just contacted him. Your father knew that you were hiding something from him, but you didn't want to tell him. He couldn't force you to tell him, so he called me to ask. Xiao Yi, Dad didn't say anything. You have to stay calm. Commander-in-Chief Xia really didn't dare to tell Father Fu that Yi Qian was very likely to be targeted. He could only keep it a secret. Even if Father Fu knew something was up, it didn't matter as long as he didn't know the details. Chapter 45-77. Yesterday, when Father Fu kept asking, Yi Qian knew that Father Fu would not stop there. As long as no one said a word, Father Fu would not know. Dad, thank you for your hard work. Don't worry, I will be calm. I will not cause any trouble for you and Uncle. I'm not causing any trouble. I'm just worried that your father will think too much. You have to try to calm your father down and stop his suspicions. Do you understand? Commander-in-Chief Xia always had no choice but to be polite to his future daughter-in-law. They were all family, so there was no need to be so polite. Old Master Fu had said that the Fu family was all like this. They were courteous and had a scholarly integrity in their bones. It was impossible for them to not be courteous and impolite. Yi Qian agreed to everything. She planned to completely dispel Father Fu's uneasiness in the next few days. When they arrived in southern province, they encountered a drizzle. There was no need to open an umbrella. They walked through the fine drizzle, and their hair was slightly wet. A layer of white and translucent beads of water had formed on their hair. Father Fu knelt on the wet grass and kowtowed 3 times to Uncle Chen, who had a stern face and sharp gaze in front of him. Father Fu's forehead, which was stained with grass and foam, was slightly red. Brother, you left so suddenly. I only heard the bad news a few days ago. I apologize to you. Father Fu kowtowed again. Yi Qian, who was kneeling, also kowtowed heavily with red eyes. Yesterday, she was able to control herself in front of her mother's grave. Today, when she arrived at Uncle Chen's cenotaph, Yi Qian could no longer control herself. She walked through the door of the sniper base with tears in her eyes. Familiar people, familiar people. Only her closest family was missing. The path that Uncle Chen had walked on was still there, the target that Uncle Chen had shot at was still there, the bench that Uncle Chen had sat on when he rested was still there, and the dormitory that Uncle Chen had stayed in was still in its original state. It was cleaned by the comrades in the sniper base every day, as if Uncle Chen would push open the door and enter at any moment. Father Fu's eyes were also red. His elder brother had taken care of his daughter too much, and before he could thank him properly, they were already separated by life and death. The father and daughter had been kneeling and chatting with Uncle Chen the whole time. Father Fu talked about the recent military situation, the great success of the missile launched by the base some time ago, and the threat that some Western countries felt from the missile's success. They talked a lot, and they talked about Uncle Chen's life and death. When they arrived at Yi Qian's office, Yi Qian told her about what had happened in school, her training, and the current investigation by the National Defense Department. Uncle Chen, don't worry. I listened to you and didn't investigate on my own. It was all the National Defense Department's investigation. The National Defense Department won't let go of your murderer. The father and daughter didn't know how long they had been kneeling and talking. When they got up, Father Fu still fell forward. Fortunately, Yi Qian's eyes were sharp, and her hands were quick enough to steady him. Brother, Yi Qian and I will come to see you next time. She's busy, so I hope you can forgive her for not visiting you often. If there's any new news from the National Defense Department, I'll definitely come to let you know. I hope you can forgive us for not being able to come and chat with you for so long. Uncle Chen, Jane Eyre will come to see you next time. Goodbye, Uncle Chen. In the drizzle, Yi Qian, who had gotten up, knelt down again and kowtowed heavily to say goodbye. The wind blew through her fine black hair, and a few drops of rain dripped from her hair onto her face. Droplets of water flowed out of her eyes and mixed with the rain, and then slowly slid down her cheeks. In the photo, the corners of Uncle Chen's mouth and gaze were still sharp, and he looked straight ahead. He was looking at the entire sniper base, as if he had never left. Chapter 45-78. The officers and instructors of the sniper base all wanted to stay the night with Yi Qian. Yi Qian and Father Fu also wanted to visit Uncle Jen at the Martyrs Memorial Team in Southern Province, so they politely declined. Uncle Jen and Uncle Chen were Yi Qian's closest relative. The deaths of the two elders made Yi Qian feel the pain of being cut to pieces. Every time he thought about it, he would still cry. 3 years had passed since Uncle Jen's death. Yi Qian did not feel as sad as when he faced Uncle Chen. However, when he saw the kind-looking Uncle Jen in the photo and called him Grandpa Jen, Yi Qian's voice became a little choked up. That day, Yi Qian and Father Fu stayed in Southern Province. The hotel they stayed in was none other than the Caesar Hotel, owned by Ho Zi. The lobby manager was the same one who had met Yi Qian before. When he saw Yi Qian, he recognized him at first glance and personally received him. Boss Ho had instructed that if Miss Yi came to their hotel, the hotel would be her home. They had to treat her well. The room they stayed in was the same one Xia Jinyuan stayed in when she came to Southern Province. Father Fu was arranged to stay in the room next door, which was also reserved by Ho Zi. When Ho Zi found out that Yi Qian was staying in his hotel, he hugged one child in each hand and said to his wife, Xia Yiwei, sixth brother's wife went to our hotel. It's a pity that we're not in Southern Province. Otherwise we could have met her. Following Xia Yiwei's instructions, Ho Zi insisted on going wherever his wife went. He followed Xia Yiwei everywhere. This boss, who used to be a leader in both the underworld and the underworld, had long lost the ruthlessness of his youth. Although his iconic peach blossom eyes were still sparkling, they were more reserved and deep. At first glance, people could tell that he was a successful man and not a mafia boss. Xia Yiwei was preparing dinner when she heard this. She glanced at her husband, who had squeezed into the kitchen countless times, and said with a look of disdain, I know you. Hurry up and take big treasure and little treasure out. Don't you know that you're so tall and big and are in the way? With a husband who couldn't wait to stick to her 24/7, sometimes Xia Yiwei wished she could whip Ho Zi away. Da Bao, Xiao Bao, your mom is despising Dad again. Sigh, Dad's relationship with a woman is broken before she's old. How tragic, "Ho-Zi, do you want to sleep in the study tonight?" Without waiting for Ho-Zi to finish acting pitiful to De Bao and Little Bao, Xia Yiwei picked up the kitchen knife and glared at Ho-Zi, who was becoming more and more lively in front of her. Ho-Zi didn't want to sleep in the study. Seeing the situation, he hurriedly said, "Dad has to work hard to make Mom happy. De Bao and Little Bao can go outside to play. Dad has to accompany Mom to cook dinner." He immediately left the kitchen with De Bao and Little Bao, and then slipped back in less than a minute. He coaxed and teased. Looking at the man who was about to turn 40, Xia Yiwei found it funny and sweet at the same time. After more than 10 years of ups and downs, fortunately, they didn't let go. Fortunately, they persevered even if they were bleeding. The love she wanted, the home she wanted, they were all given to her by the man in front of her, who was still charming and attractive to young girls. The years were peaceful, all because of you. Yi Qian, who was far away in the southern province, didn't know that she was staying in a hotel, but Ho-Zi and her husband knew that she had to return to school the day after tomorrow. In order to spend more time with his daughter, Father Fu asked about the busiest night market in the provincial capital and took Yi Qian to visit the night market. It was rare for the father and daughter to get together. They strolled around the night market and tasted snacks. It wasn't until the 5th day that the father and daughter left the southern province. When they arrived at the airport, the father and daughter didn't travel together. Father Fu flew to the capital, and Yi Qian flew back to Xiang City with a camouflage handbag with the scent of Chinese medicine to begin her 10-day training. Chapter 45-79. Yi Qian had rested for 5 days. Although he had been flying here and there, he was still energetic. After taking care of himself, his tricolored skin had become much whiter and lighter. With a little makeup, he still looked like a flower in the military school. After Yi Qian arrived at the school, he sent a text message to Father Fu saying that he had arrived safely. Then he received a text message from Song Jiqiu, informing him that the students who were training outside the school would gather in the conference room on the 5th floor of the number 4 teaching building for a pre-training meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was also a meeting for the students to pledge their allegiance. It was already 12:40 when Yi Qian arrived at the airport. Seeing that he was running out of time, he gave up taking the bus and ran to the taxi parking area to take a taxi back to the school. It was only 10 minutes before 2 o'clock when he arrived at the school. He ran all the way to the number 4 teaching building without even putting his luggage back in the dormitory. He almost sprinted all the way for fear that he would be late. For a soldier, being late was an unforgivable mistake. Yi Qian had been in the army for several years and had never been late. In the conference room, Song Jiqiu checked her watch several times and raised her head to look at the door of the conference room from time to time. Although she did not show it on her face, she was actually anxious in her heart. This was not a casual meeting. In addition to the leaders of the faculty, there were also leaders of the institute. There were as many as 5 important leaders of the school, such as Commissar Yu. If Yi Qian was late at the critical moment, he would leave a bad impression on the leaders. Song Jiqiu was very worried that it would affect Yi Qian's title of excellent student when he graduated. Yi Qian, who was running under the scorching sun, did not think about the consequences in the future. He only thought that he must not be late. Yi Qian ran like a shadow to the 5th floor. Seeing that there were still 2 minutes left, he rushed to the bathroom and changed into the summer military uniform within 1 minute. Then he rushed into the conference room within 30 seconds. Song Jiqiu heard the footsteps outside. After all, they had been classmates for 3 years. The second she heard the footsteps, Song Jiqiu could not help but close her eyes slightly and let out a breath of foul air that had been suppressed in her heart. Yi Qian arrived at the conference room at 2 o'clock sharp. There were 35 third-year students in the conference room in total. They were all responsible for the 10-day off-campus training starting from tomorrow. Seeing Yi Qian come in, 35 pairs of eyes looked at the door at the same time. Yi Qian, inexplicably, everyone secretly adjusted their breaths. Even their backs slightly changed. They were straighter than before Yi. Everyone wanted to be number one, even those who were trained outside the school. However, if an expert whose strength was so strong that it was obvious to all that it was difficult to compete with him joined, it would indeed make the other members nervous and feel pressured. Yi! Song Jiqiu greeted her with a smile. She was in the same class as Yi Jian, and Yi Jian was the only student in the class who was training outside the school. Song Jiqiu, who had arrived earlier, left a seat beside her for Yi Jian. Yi Jian walked over with a smile and sat down. She apologized softly. "Thank you. Fortunately, I saw your message when I got off the plane. Otherwise, I would be late today. I was worried too. Fortunately, I made it in time. Look, I am in a cold sweat." Song Jiqiu pretended to raise her hand to wipe the non-existent cold sweat on her forehead. She talked with him in a low voice. "The director told you a few days ago that you had returned to school, but you hurried back to Beijing in the afternoon. He contacted you immediately at 11 o'clock this morning. Since your phone was turned off, I guess you must have been on the plane. Fortunately, it was the morning flight. If it was the next one, you would not be late. You would be absent." Chapter 4580. Yi Qian nodded with lingering fear. She was right. Fortunately, she came from the southern province. I came from the southern province and boarded the plane at 11 o'clock. I was half an hour late. Otherwise, I would have arrived at the school earlier. If she came from the capital, as Song Jiqiu said, she was absent. There was no dark history in the military school for 3 years. It would be hard for Yi Qian to accept that she was absent from a meeting in the last year of her senior year. She was lucky to arrive on time. The 5 school leaders had not arrived yet. Xiang University brought 2 school leaders. The leaders of the 2 schools talked and walked toward the number 4 teaching building. In the conference room, the 36 third-year students sat neatly. No one leaned on the chair or raised their legs. They all sat upright like long spears. "This is our conference room. All the students are here. Director Guan, Teacher Li, please." Political Commissar Yu's voice came from outside. The 36 students sat upright and waited for the leaders of various levels to enter the conference room. The accompanying chief instructor entered first. When Director Guan and Teacher Li, who were sent by other schools to attend the meeting, entered the conference room, the chief instructor shouted, "Stand up." Whoosh! The 36 students stood up at the same time with their own imposing voices. "Salute!" Hua! They saluted at the same time, which showed the specific temperament that a military school student should have. Director Guan and Teacher Li, who came in, obviously paused their steps. Their school was also one of the top 985 key universities in Xiang City. Anyone who was admitted to this university was also a proud son of God. However, compared with the students of the National Defense Science and Technology University, they were a little less spirited. After the salute, the 36 students sat down neatly again. No one was faster, no one was slower. They were so neat that it was like the same person was doing the same action. Inviting the leaders of the university in charge of military training to the military school for a meeting was an indispensable process. Only when both sides had an exchange could the follow-up work be carried out more smoothly. Director Guan and Teacher Li were introduced first. After the students finished applauding, Political Commissar Yu started the meeting. Director Guan and Teacher Li had a preliminary understanding of the 36 students. They knew that the students sent by the National Defense Science and Technology University were all third-year students with excellent comprehensive qualities. They sat down and glanced at the faces of the 36 uniformed summer military uniforms. When they saw Yi Qian, their eyes paused for a moment. "Find the information of that female student and show it to me." Director Guan leaned forward slightly and whispered to Teacher Li, who was holding the personal information of the 36 students. She's the only girl among the 36 students. Teacher Li also noticed the only female student present. She quickly found Yi Qian's personal information. The personal information provided to them was very simple. Their name, gender, age, as well as their outstanding grades during school, and nothing else. Yi Qian's results had always been impressive. When a few of the first-time directors came up, they said in surprise, "I really couldn't tell that he was an all-rounder. It's not easy for a girl to get first place consecutively in a male-dominated territory. Not easy at all." He had nearly underestimated the other party. She is indeed not simple. Teacher Li compared the information of the other students. Although she was the only female student, she was not inferior to the male students. The National Science and Technology University didn't list all of Yi Qian's results one by one. They only needed to list 3 or 4 items. Director Guan and Teacher Li from Xiang City University finished reading and had an idea in their hearts. The meeting this time lasted for 2 hours. It was mainly for the 36 students who were training outside of the school for the first time. As for the directors and teachers sent by Xiang University, they could just sit at the side and listen. Chapter 4581. Only now did the 36 students know that the school they were going to was called Xiang University. In order to ensure the effective completion of the training mission, to standardize the management of the instructors during the training period, and to show the good image of the military, the instructors of the military training from other schools would be given strict orders when they went to other schools. They had to remember all the rules and regulations. Once the chief instructor found out that an instructor had violated the rules, it would not be a small matter. Both punishment and demerit would be given. Although the 36 students would be at Xiang University for 10 days, their lifestyle was still the same as the military. There was nothing special about it. They had to obey orders, listen to commands, remember the rules and regulations, and strictly abide by the rules and regulations of the military. They also had to strictly abide by the rules and regulations of the school. They were not allowed to participate in the management of the students outside of 8 hours. Political Commissar, you read out the rules and regulations that the students had to abide by one during the training period. When he read out the rules and regulations, Director Guan and Teacher Li, who came to Xiang University, were a bit nervous. Strict, it was really very strict. This was the most obvious difference between a military school and a normal high school. After the military training, the students can move freely, but the instructors will not allow them to move freely. They are not allowed to participate in any activities that are not related to the military training. Even if the students invite them, they must clearly reject them. If they violate the rules, they will be given demerit points. The instructors of the military training from other schools must always maintain the image of a soldier. They are not allowed to do anything that will damage the image of a soldier, such as smoking, drinking, or asking for the students' contact information. At the same time, they must clearly reject the students' request for their contact information. If they violate the rules, they will be given demerit points. Civilized training, step by step. They are not allowed to be rough. They are not allowed to beat or scold the students. They must strictly discipline themselves. They are not allowed to ask for drinks or money from the students. They are also not allowed to accept gifts. If they are caught, they will be given demerit points. If there is an emergency, report it to the leader immediately to ensure the safety of the students. One after another, the expressions of the 36 students became more and more serious. For them, the training from other schools was not only a mission, but also a test. Director Guan, Teacher Li, do you two have anything to add? Political Commissar, you put down the document in his hand and smiled at the person in charge of the military training of Xiang University. If your school has any requirements, our students will definitely comply. After Political Commissar Yu finished reading out the rules and regulations that the instructors had to follow, Director Guan and Teacher Li felt that it didn't matter whether they came or not. There's nothing to add. What we're worried about and what we're asking for, your school has already clearly stated. Our school doesn't have any problems to add. Director Guan replied with a smile and nodded repeatedly. After listening to your school's strict requirements for the 36 instructors, our school is very relieved to hand over more than 1,300 students to your school's instructors. I hope that in the next 10 days, we can successfully complete the 10 days of military training together with the principle of mutual cooperation and mutual understanding. We also hope that after the 10 days of military training, we will be able to see a brand new side of the freshmen. Let's not talk about becoming as tall and straight as the 36 instructors present here. We only hope that more than 1,300 freshmen will be able to change their past arrogance. Political Commissar Yu smiled. Of course, we will definitely cooperate with your school and successfully complete the 10 days of military training. After that, Political Commissar Yu stopped smiling and turned to ask the 36 students, "Do you have the confidence to fulfill Director Guan's request?" "Yes." 36 loud and clear voices rang out. They were full of energy and vibrated to the point that their eardrums were buzzing. Chapter 4582. Director Guan, we students are confident that we can do it. When the time comes, please inspect the results of our military training. Political Commissar Yu was very satisfied with the students' answers. Soldiers must have the spirit of a soldier, and even more importantly, they must have guts. Director Guan, who had wanted to go over and talk about some things that the students needed to pay attention to, did not take out any documents from his briefcase. What should be said and what should not be said had already been said in detail. They really did not have any more questions to ask. Following that, a document was issued that required the signatures of the 36 students. The 36 students all signed their names, and 10 minutes later, the 36 students boarded the bus that was arranged to head to Xiong University to begin their training outside the school. As for the arrangements made by the military academy, Director Guan and Teacher Li, the two people in charge of the internal military training, chose to watch with a smile the entire time. They felt that 10 minutes was a very short time, and they could choose to depart after an hour. However, the military academy had strict rules, so they were just watching and learning along the way. Yi Qian, who did not even go back to her dorm room, grabbed her luggage and quickly walked back to her room. First, she took out all the Chinese medicine creams she had prepared and put them in the cupboard. This was definitely not convenient to bring to Xiong University. Then, looking at the pile of skincare products, Yi Qian thought for a bit, and still took out the facial cleanser and foundation. As for the water, lotion, and cream, Yi Qian did not bring any of them. If it was not for the fact that there was a boundary between the three colors of her skin, she would only bring the facial cleanser and nothing else. The back of her shoulder was still recovering from the sunburn. Although the skin was still a bit red, the peeling areas had already grown new tender skin, so there was no need to worry. Bedding, toiletries, camouflage clothing, and military boots all needed to be brought. The water bottle and cup could not be left behind. When Yi Qian walked out of the dorm room, her bed was empty. The washstand was also empty. It was very clean, as if she had just graduated from the military school. She packed her luggage as fast as she could, then took out a pen and left a few words for Su Wen and He Jing, who had not yet returned to school. Yi Qian picked up her backpack and rushed towards the female dorm building, rushing towards the assembly point. The 35 male students rushed out of the dorm building only a few seconds after Yi Qian. Before 10 minutes had even passed, Director Guan, Teacher Li, and the bus driver who had arranged for them to enter the school saw that the 36 students who were heading to Xiong University had all arrived in less than 10 seconds, as if they had already agreed. The chief instructor was in charge of gathering and boarding the vehicle. The distance between the two schools wasn't far. After crossing the bridge and walking along the riverside road, they quickly arrived at Seong University, which was built by the mountains and rivers. More than 1,300 freshmen had learned from the notice that military training would begin tomorrow. However, there were still a few freshmen who had yet to report, but all of them would be done by today. The instructors had not arrived yet, so they were resting in the dormitory after reporting in. The freshmen who knew each other chatted about military training, but the topic they talked about the instructors the most. Both boys and girls were no exception. The girls' expressions changed when they talked about the military training. There were even girls who went to their homeroom teachers, hoping to be exempted from the military training. They used all kinds of excuses, but other than a few who were physically unable to participate in the training, the rest of the freshmen had no room for negotiation. All of their requests were rejected and they obediently waited for tomorrow's military training. Some parents happened to be sending their daughters to college. When they saw the sun outside, their hearts ached. They also went to the homeroom teacher, hoping that their daughters would be spared from suffering on account of their parents. The military training in the university had been going on for 4 years, and the class instructors were all very experienced. With their superb conversational skills, they faced any request from parents without any discussion. All the university students in the country had to participate in the military training. There was no exception, no discussion. Chapter 45-83. The girls who were spoiled by their parents had no room for negotiation. Looking at the sun that could make them dizzy, some of the girls threw themselves on the bed and cried. They had to participate even if they wanted to. No matter how sad they were, there was no room for negotiation. The girls who had accepted the military training and yearned for it would persuade the crying girls. They even smiled and said, "We were the first to come and told you the news. The ones who came back this time are not soldiers from the army. They're all military school students as instructors. They're also university students. They'll definitely be easier to talk to than the instructors from the army. It's useless for you to cry now. The homeroom teacher won't agree to take leave. Even if you cry until your face is swollen, he won't let you take leave. It's better to think about when to take leave from the instructors. If you really can't hold on, the instructors won't make things difficult for us. Yes, don't cry. Actually, military training isn't that tiring. My classmates who got into Nanjing University told me that they all took 15 days. Our Hunan University is considered good. It's only 10 days. It's only 10 days. It'll pass if you grit your teeth. Yes, it's only 10 days of military training. It'll pass quickly. Don't cry. Do you want to eat some of my hometown specialties? They're very delicious. Okay. Turn grief into appetite. Since we can't escape, we'll face it. They were all freshmen who had left home for the first time. They comforted the crying girls with their words. This was the dormitory of girls who had good personalities and knew how to comfort others. There were also some girls who were very impulsive. When they saw someone running back to the military training center saying that they didn't want to go to the military training center, the girls with impulsive personalities directly made a scene. They shouted at the girl who treated them negatively, "If you have the ability, go ask the homeroom teacher yourself. Don't complain in the dormitory, okay? Didn't you see the military training notice when you received the notice? Didn't you prepare yourself at home? Did you only know today? If you don't want to go to the military training center, tell the homeroom teacher. It's annoying to see. Why are you talking? I'm just saying. If you don't listen, you can leave. I'm talking about my own things. It's none of your business. This is my dormitory. What right do you have to ask me to leave? You're talking. I'm just saying. If you don't listen, you can leave. I'm talking about my own things. It's none of your business." The hot-tempered girl was unwilling to be outdone. Since she had spoken, she would not let the other party talk back. Originally, everyone was a little scared when they thought about the 10 days of military training. After all, none of them had experienced such hardships before. However, when they heard from their senior brothers and sisters that the military training was indeed tough, standing for an hour on a hot day, they were all terrified. Although they were terrified, they accepted the truth. In the end, there was one person who kept sighing and saying, "I don't want to participate, I don't want to get a heat stroke, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that." Everyone became even more negative after hearing her words. The girl who was nagging didn't show any weakness and rushed over to quarrel. When the other girls saw this, they quickly pulled the two of them apart. Some of the girls quickly closed the dormitory door so as not to alarm the dormitory teacher and invite the homeroom teacher. That would have a bad influence. Stop complaining, stop complaining. You have to participate in the military training, so stop complaining. We still have to stay in the same dormitory for 4 years. Let's calm down and get along peacefully. We have to get along peacefully. Let's all take a step back, don't be angry. We're all in the same class. If we make things ugly, no one will feel good, right? If the homeroom teacher reprimands the two of you, you won't have any face either, right? We definitely have to participate in the military training. The senior brothers and sisters who reported it said very clearly that we have to accept it. Quarrels like this were very normal. They usually resolved it in private without alerting the homeroom teacher. Chapter 4584. There were also some dormitories that were looking forward to the military training. They were all very excited when they talked about the military training. They couldn't wait to start tonight to avoid any more problems. We're much luckier than the senior brothers and sisters from the previous 3 batches. The ones we invited are all high-quality cadet. That's Hua University in the military. Cadets from the military academy must all be very powerful. Ha ha, what you want to see isn't how powerful they are, but how handsome they are. Don't think too much. You have to know that reality is very cruel. No, I have to think about the motivation that makes me look forward to the 10 days of military training. I can't give up. Hey, do you think their tempers will be good? They should be better than the soldiers in the army. After all, they're university students. Don't, girl. Although they're university students, they're all military school students. Other than going to class, they're exactly the same as the army. My brother is a military school student. When he came back in the first semester of his first year, my mother cried and cooked a table full of food for my brother. It's so dirty. It's no different from a bao-bao. Then is your brother handsome? Is it possible that he's in this batch of instructors? If your brother is here, wouldn't it be more convenient for us to ask for leave? You're thinking too much again. My brother is only in his 2nd year. The instructors for our military training this year are all in their 3rd year. Don't think too much. Whether he's ugly or handsome, it's up to fate. We can't join hands to change instructors just because they're ugly, right? Suddenly, there was a burst of light laughter in the dormitory. The atmosphere in a dormitory like this was quite good. Those girls who were a little conflicted quickly accepted it calmly. Most girls accepted the military training. Only a few people would be conflicted. It was these few people who would easily infect the other students with negative thoughts. At this time, it was the homeroom teacher's turn to solve it. The girls were gentle. The homeroom teacher came out to talk and comfort them. The boys also secretly went to the homeroom teacher's office to ask for leave. Boys were even less likely to be approved. When the homeroom teacher saw a boy come to ask for leave, the first thing he said was, "No way." None of the girls came to ask for leave. You're a boy and you're asking for leave? Often, a sentence would make the boys leave dejectedly, not daring to stay. They had to have some self-respect. They couldn't admit that they were worse than the girls. That would be embarrassing. There was probably only one boy in a few classes who wanted to take leave to avoid military training. The rest of the boys yearned for it very much. After all, every man had a hot-blooded dream, so they had a lot of opinions about the military training being shortened from 15 days to 10 days. Only 10 days? F***ck, how can 10 days be enough? Even 15 days is too little. 10 days really isn't enough. I feel like I'm just standing there for a while. I don't feel anything at all. I heard that there will be target practice. Is that true? Does our school have a shooting range? I don't think so. Even if 10 days isn't enough, there's nothing I can do. I've asked my senior brother who interacted with me. Everyone has a chance to practice with a real gun, but not real bullet. They're blanks. I'm not interested in anything else. My biggest interest is target practice. Also, don't let the instructors have a bad temper. I don't want to fight them. It's not to the extent of fighting. This time, they're all military school students. None of them are soldiers in the army. They're university students after all. I'm sure they're well-mannered, but I don't know how capable they are. Hey, aren't you the runner-up of the Taekwondo competition? Do you want to compete with the instructor when the time comes? Ha ha, if he defeats the instructor will lose face. I don't think they'll compete. If we don't say anything, we'll kick up a fuss. When the time comes, the instructor won't be able to back down and will definitely come out. Okay. It's settled then. Let's watch a good show. Chapter 4585. The freshmen of Xiang University who were waiting for the military training instructor had already gone through round after round of discussion in their dorms. Overall, they were quite happy. Yi Qian and the other 36 military academy students were also very happy, but their happiness was all hidden in their hearts. Their faces were all very serious. Even sitting in the car gave them a sense of solemnity, which made Teacher Li feel very pressured. Teacher Li wanted to talk to the only female student several times, but seeing the stern female instructor sitting across the aisle, he swallowed his words back down. Teacher Li felt that if he spoke, it would be too abrupt, so he decided to just chat quietly with the chief instructor. The atmosphere in the car was so serious that as a logistics teacher, he felt quite uncomfortable. After talking for a while, they brought up Yi Qian. Teacher Li told him about his private discussion with Dean Guan. I don't know if we can suppress it when the time comes. If we can't, we can immediately inform our teachers, and we will definitely help to rectify the class discipline. She was excellent in all aspects, but she was a girl after all. Girls usually had less face. If she was angered to tears by those naughty boys, then that wouldn't be too good. Teacher Li, little Yi is excellent in all aspects. It's impossible that he can't suppress the situation. If there really are a few very opinionated students who come out to cause trouble, with little Ye's ability, he can easily handle it without bothering the school. Since it's military training, the class discipline will definitely follow the military and have strict requirements. When the time comes, I'm afraid there will be students who will come to complain. I hope your school can investigate this properly. The chief instructor had been in charge of coordinating the training of students from other schools for several consecutive years. With his rich experience, he gave Teacher Li a heads-up in advance. He didn't want the school to criticize their students just because of the students' one-sided statements. Every school teacher would naturally side with their students, and as the chief instructor, he was no exception. Teacher Li smiled and nodded. Don't worry. Ever since the military training of the nation's high schools began, our school has participated in it every year. We've encountered many similar incidents. Some of them are indeed students who deliberately twist the truth to gain sympathy and expand public opinion in an attempt to put pressure on the instructors. Our school will not just listen to one side of the story and have an opinion about the instructors. We will investigate carefully and give both sides a satisfactory explanation. With Teacher Li's words, the chief instructor was much more relieved. This was the first time they had a military training partnership with Xiang University. It was the first time they had established a military training exchange. Some things should be said in advance to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Teacher Li was quite satisfied with the 36 students from the military academy. They were not inferior to the soldiers in the army. The bus drove into the campus of Xiang University at around 5:40 in the afternoon. The bus didn't have any signs, so even if the bus passed by the campus driveway, the students walking on both sides of the driveway didn't notice the arrival of the military training instructors. Originally, there was a banner in front of the bus. When the bus drove into the University of Science and Technology of China, the officer in charge of reception smiled and said, "There's no need to be so high-profile." After Director Guan agreed, he took down the banner with red and white words that said, "Welcome the military training instructor of the University of Science and Technology of China." The freshmen were still discussing the military training instructor when the instructor in charge of the military training quietly entered the school. He got out of the car and walked into the dormitory arranged by the school. The male students gathered and went to their temporary dormitories. 4 of them shared a dormitory, while the other 2 students shared a dormitory with the head instructor. Chapter 4586. Song Jiqiu was the male student who was unfortunately assigned to the same dormitory as the chief instructor. He exchanged a look with another male student who shared the same difficulties. Only he knew how he felt. Who would want to share a dormitory with the chief instructor? No. Yi Qian, the only female student, was not assigned a dormitory. Director Guan mentioned that Yi Qian should have a dormitory alone in the meeting. Political Commissar Yu thought it was inappropriate and asked which dormitory was not full. Then Yi Qian was assigned to share a dormitory with the new students instead of a single dormitory. Yi Qian did not care. He accepted it gladly and did not have any objection. With the arrangement of the leaders of the National University of Science and Technology, the female students who were assigned to the same dormitory had no objection. Director Guan naturally had no objection either. 35 male students were led by Mr. Li and went to the male dormitory building in a line. Yi Qian was led to the female dormitory by a female teacher who was in charge of the logistics of military training. It was dinner time. The 35 students who had entered the school gate quietly walked to the male dormitory in a line. Instead of walking quietly, people stopped and ran over to watch them. 35 students were led by the chief instructor. With their heads held high and chests out, they walked into the sight of the male students valiantly. The male students were more reserved than the female students. Even if they stared at them for a long time, they would not speak casually. The girls, on the other hand, were different. They were wearing summer uniforms, and even though they were carrying a full backpack on their backs were still straight. They walked with military might, and the valiant temperament that belonged only to soldiers was perfectly displayed by the 35 boys. They represented the image of the army, and could not lose their momentum. "Turn left." The chief instructor, who was leading the way in the front, shouted in a low voice. Song Jiqiu, who was in the front, turned left. Then the second, the third, the fourth, all turned straight. What the F***ck? They can even turn in a straight line. They are awesome. They are so handsome. Even their walking posture is different. Ha, your walking posture is like that of epilepsy. Everyone is different from you. What the F***ck? Go away. I am also handsome when I walk. The friendship between male students was usually established in a few minutes. They stayed in the same dormitory and chatted for a day and a half, so they talked much more freely. The friendship between girls was much slower than that of boys. Usually, they needed to understand each other's strengths, or perhaps they would understand each other's strengths, and the friendship would be established instantly. Under normal circumstances, they would first be reserved, and then transition from politeness to fooling around. While the boys were laughing, the 35 students walked into the boys' dormitory. They silently looked at the girls and walked away. After walking a distance, they said excitedly, "The instructor at the front, do you see him? Do you see him? So handsome. I wonder which class he will be in charge of. Could it be our instructor? If only he was in charge of our class. He's so handsome. I saw it. He's so handsome. So handsome. Let him be in charge of our class. I hope he can be in charge of our class. Let's go back and tell them that the instructors are so handsome. The most handsome one is the first instructor. He's tall, handsome, and elegant. Oh no. I feel like I fell in love at first sight." You wish. Maybe you already have a girlfriend. The military training hadn't started yet, but the news about the handsome military training instructor had already spread. The sophomores and juniors who stayed behind to receive the new students couldn't help but join in. Chapter 45-87. Yi Qian's side was much calmer. She was alone and led by Teacher Lu. When the girls saw Yi Qian, they were not attracted by her identity as an instructor, but by her appearance. "She's not a military instructor, right? She's so pretty." "That's impossible. Can't she be a military instructor just because she's pretty? What kind of logic is that? She's pretty, but don't you think she has an outstanding aura? She's so perfect. She's quite elegant. She's even prettier and more elegant than the female soldiers on TV. The female soldiers on TV aren't female soldiers. They're actors. She's a female soldier. Of course she's more elegant. She's so pretty. She could get into a film academy. Why did she become a soldier? Ha ha. She took the National University of Science and Technology, the Tsinghua University of the military schools. Her score isn't lower than ours. Do you think she's an ordinary soldier? Wrong, she'll be an officer after graduation. We'll look for jobs after graduation. She'll have a job after graduation. She'll be assigned a job by the country. She met a girl who wanted to apply for a military school but was rejected because of her physical condition. With her doing a simple exam, there were no more doubts. News of the male instructor's handsomeness spread. News of the female instructors being prettier than TV stars also spread. The 36 military instructors had yet to officially appear in front of more than 1,300 students, but they were already very popular. Yi Qian, who didn't look askance, received all the attention and followed Teacher Lu to her female dormitory. Before coming here, Yi Qian really didn't expect to encounter a war of words between girls. Teacher Lu didn't expect it either. She looked embarrassed and said to Yi Qian, "Sorry, instructor, please wait for a moment. I'll go in and see what's going on." Yi Qian, who was in a dilemma, immediately smiled and said, "Okay, no rush." Her dormitory was on the 4th floor. The 4th, 5th, and 6th floors were all freshmen's dormitories. Yi Qian, who was in her military uniform, stood at the door of her dormitory on the 4th floor during dinner time. She was like a mascot being stared at. Some girls even stuck their heads out of their dormitories and quickly retreated. "Hello, are you the military training instructor?" Yi Qian, the mascot, stood there for about 2 minutes. A braver girl walked over and asked embarrassedly, "He should be the instructor in charge of our military training. Is he from our class?" Then, afraid that Yi Qian would misunderstand, she said, "This room belongs to our class. There are 2 girls' rooms in our class, and they're not full yet." There had always been very few girls in the surveying and mapping project, under the engineering school. Being able to gather 10 girls was basically the highest number. Yi Qian would never tell him in advance which class he was in charge of. He smiled and replied, "I'm the instructor in charge of the freshmen's military training, but I'm not sure if I'm in charge of your class's military training." "It's really a military training instructor." Yi Qian's words seemed to have given the other party a great deal of courage. His small voice suddenly became louder, and it made Yi Qian's heart skip a beat. The few of us have been following you all the way just now, wondering if you're really a military training instructor. How can there be such a beautiful instructor? You're really, really, really beautiful. If he spoke politely, it would attract the attention of 5 or 6 girls. Yi Qian felt that he would rather continue to be a silent mascot than speak. The freshmen of Xiong University were too enthusiastic. They asked one question after another, and he needed to take turns answering. Image, I must pay attention to my image. I can't embarrass the military. I can't embarrass the military academy. Yi Qian thought to himself as he smiled and answered the girls' questions. It was his first time being surrounded by a crowd in his military uniform. Chapter 45-88. Girls had a deep sense of closeness to soldiers, which had a lot to do with the situation of their country. Soldiers and civilians were one family, and they were protecting the country. Even if they didn't speak or move, they would still give the people around them an inexplicable sense of security. At this moment, Yi Qian, who was surrounded by a number of girls, became the focus of the entire 4th floor. The quarreling in the dorm room had not stopped, and they could even hear Teacher Lu shouting angrily. Yi Qian, who could not enter for a while, decided to just stand there and collect a large wave of starry, admiring gazes. Yi Qian felt that her back had become very stiff, and she was not used to being surrounded by people like a moon surrounded by stars. Everyone in the military academy was the same, and no one thought that anyone was special. Other than getting some attention during competitions, Yi Qian had never been treated like this before. As a result, she became more and more uncomfortable as she smiled. Fortunately, she was good at disguising herself, and the girls did not see through her. The girls who thought that the instructor was very gentle became even more enthusiastic, and even invited Yi Qian to their dorms to sit for a while. After all, the quarrel in room 405 was still going on, and it probably would not stop anytime soon. A girl whispered, "Instructor, I think you should change dorms. There's a girl in there who is very fierce. She came over yesterday and quarreled with her roommate over a locker." The counselor had no choice but to persuade the other girl to give up the locker. "Her mother is even more fierce. That girl said she wanted to sleep on the bed by the window, and her mother took away the mattress and blanket of the local girl who came home last night. Now she's quarreling with the local girl who came home. The counselor is not here yet, so you came first. Why don't you come to our dorm room and wait for the counselor to take Huang Yan away before you go over?" "Yeah, instructor, you must be tired from standing, and you're carrying such a big backpack. Come to our dorm room and sit for a while." "Instructor, have you eaten yet? Do you want me to take you to the cafeteria? We haven't eaten yet either. Is it that Huang Yan who quarreled so fiercely yesterday? Oh my God, who is this weirdo making things difficult for again? Yan, how is she elegant? Just change Yan to Yan." Yi Qian did not see who the quarreling was, but she remembered the name. Huang Yan. She was one of the new students in the class she was training. It seemed that this girl still had a lot to do. She snatched the bookshelves of other students, and in order to sleep on the bed that she wanted, she moved the bedding that her classmates had laid out for her without asking for permission. To be able to do something so infuriating, just by hearing her name, one would know that she was not an easy girl to get along with. It didn't matter to her that they weren't easy to get along with. She would follow the normal military training process. There would be no beating or scolding, only normal punishment. Even if her parents made a scene in school, she wouldn't be worried. "Thank you for your kindness. We will arrange dinner together. I will go down after I put my luggage down. You guys haven't eaten yet, right? Then hurry up and eat. Your favorite dishes will be snatched away later." "Instructor, you're so interesting. Will your military academy be like us? Good food will be snatched away in advance. We put the food in the same place and line up to receive the food. There will also be delicious dishes that will be snatched away in advance. Just like you, there's no difference. The girls were very curious about life in the military academy, or rather, they were very curious about life in the military. Now that they had met an easygoing soldier, they took the opportunity to ask questions like little sparrows. If it were a male student, they would definitely not dare to get so close to her. Shyness would make them very reserved. Chapter 45-89. Yi Qian was a girl, so it was natural for the girls to get close to her and feel that she was easy to get along with. That was what they thought now. When the military training began, they realized how strict the female instructor, who had been very easy to talk to yesterday, could be. Even when they were all crying, she didn't even raise her eyes. She didn't even look over. Yi Qian's answer made the girls laugh. So she was the same as them. What about the military? Is it the same in the military? Of course, but it usually doesn't happen. You can eat whatever you like. Is the military training the same as the military training? There's no difference. The military and military schools are all militarized, so it's no different for us. Are you tired? I saw you standing for hours without moving. You even had to stand in the sun today, and couldn't run to hide in the shade. How are you going to stand here? Yi Qian smiled. The corners of her mouth curved into the most appropriate angle, like a blooming orchid. Take it slow. First 10 minutes, then half an hour, then an hour, 2 hours, and so on. Instructor, how many hours can you stand? Until you don't stand anymore. That sounds very tiring. Instructor, will we stand tomorrow? How many hours will we stand? Standing at attention is an essential part of military training. You will have to stand tomorrow. The instructor will decide how long to stand, Yi Qian answered until her mouth was dry. The instructor finally hurried over. The two teachers didn't see Yi Qian at first. They only saw a group of girls crowding in front of him. The already angry instructor strode over and shouted, "What are you all crowding around for? What are you doing? Go back to your own dorms." The girls didn't notice the instructor's arrival, and Yi Qian, who was surrounded, didn't notice either. Hearing the voice, the girls quickly turned around, and then the instructor saw Yi Qian. The instructor was stunned, then realized that a female instructor would be staying in their class dorm 405 until the end of military training. Now that there was a quarrel in dorm 405, the instructor in charge of their class's military training was blocked outside. I'm sorry. Hello, instructor. I'm the instructor. There's a small conflict between the students inside. Sorry to keep you waiting." The instructor hurriedly apologized. He already had a headache over the new students who hadn't stopped since the day of registration. He had seen disobedient freshmen before, but most of them had conflicts with the school's teachers. However, this freshman was quite impressive. He had a conflict with his roommate. A self-righteous voice came from inside. "My mom said that if you don't like her, you can move out. You can move to wherever you want. It doesn't matter who comes. Yesterday, the counselor changed my cupboard. Today, the counselor will also change my bed." I only moved your things to the other bed and didn't throw them out. That's good enough." Yi Qian was flabbergasted when he heard this. This works? She was in the wrong, yet the right student was thanking her instead? Fortunately, she was placed in the same class for military training. If a girl like her were to be replaced by a male student, the male students would only have a headache. The veins on the tutor's forehead bulged when she heard this. She had taught in the university for many years and had seen all kinds of students. But today, he had learned something new and witnessed it for the first time. "How about this? It will take some time to settle things here. Instructor, why don't you go to dorm 406 for a while? What do you think?" The instructor, who was suppressing the anger in her heart, had already flown to the dorm. Yi Qian smiled and said, Then I'll put my backpack in first and come back later. What do you think? Yi Qian, who didn't want to continue being a mascot, chose to leave. They were supposed to gather for dinner at 6:20, so it was almost time. Chapter 45-90. The instructor immediately nodded, but she didn't really want Yi Qian to enter the dormitory. Yi Qian could see that she was in a difficult position, so he took the initiative to remove his backpack. A girl was quite perceptive. She quickly took the backpack and smiled. Instructor, I'll put it in for you. There are still 2 empty beds in room 405. Thank you, thank you. Yi Qian, who had handed over the backpack, saw the girl enter the dormitory. He clapped his hands and said it was done, then left. Yi Qian turned and left. The instructor's face darkened. An hour ago, she found out that there would be a military training instructor staying in room 405. She even specially warned him in advance. In the end, the instructor came, and happened to see 2 people quarreling. The reason was very simple. When a local girl who had just returned to school saw the bedding she had prepared being thrown onto an unwashed bed like trash, and the bed that originally belonged to her was occupied by someone else, how could the local girl not be angry? She questioned Huang Yuan on the spot. If Huang Yuan admitted her mistake, apologized, and made a bed for the local girl, it wouldn't have escalated to a fight. But she didn't listen. Huang Yuan, who was taller and stronger than the average girl, directly reached out and pushed her. The local girl didn't expect her to hit her. She was caught off guard and fell. Her head even hit the stairs to the top bunk. No matter how good her temper was, she was still angry. Moreover, the local girl was already burning with anger. When Yi Qian arrived, the 2 people had just separated from each other. The logistics teacher, Ms. Liu, went in to ask about the situation. She didn't dare to let the instructor, who was waiting outside, in. Not only did she admit her mistake, she even hit someone. When the instructor came in, Ms. Liu quickly handed the matter over to the instructor to deal with. This kind of student who treated people and things completely wrong was already rotten from the root. It wasn't something that the logistics teacher could handle. Yi Qian, who hadn't walked far, heard the instructor reprimand behind him. Huang Yuan, stand up. It turned out that even when she was reprimanded by the instructor, she sat down instead of standing to show respect to the instructor. During tomorrow's military training, Yi Qian predicted that this girl would be the most difficult student to train in the class. It was also a problem that she would soon face. The rest of the girls kept a respectful distance from Huang Yuan. Seeing Yi Qian leave, the girls who hadn't eaten yet wanted to walk with Yi Qian, but they were all rejected by Yi Qian. There was a rule in the military training that military instructors were not allowed to get too close to military training students unless it was necessary. In fact, it was mainly for male instructors and female students. There were no hard and fast rules for the rest. Yi Qian felt that it was better to abide by the rules. It was not a good thing to get too close to students. There was an advantage to staying in room 405. With Huang Yuan around as the instructor, she could keep a distance from any girl. After dinner, it was time for a meeting between the 36 students and the school. The meeting lasted for 1.5 hours from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The next day was the military training to welcome more than 1,300 new students. After the meeting, Ms. Liu from the logistics department found Yi Qian. She first sincerely apologized, then told Yi Qian that the school had decided to arrange a single room for him and that he would no longer stay with the girls. As for the reason, Ms. Liu didn't hide it from Yi Qian. She said with a headache, Huang Yuan is very uncooperative. In order not to affect Instructor Ye's proper rest, it's better to have a single room. The other 3 girls also strongly requested to change rooms. They don't want to stay with her. Yi Qian smiled. I'll have to trouble the teachers. She couldn't say that anyone would want to move if they stayed with a girl like her. If they stayed with a girl like her for 3 years, every minute would be torture. The sooner they moved, the better. Chapter 4591. At the mention of Huang Yuan, Teacher Lu, who was in charge of logistics, was at a loss for words. She sighed and said, "Sigh, the tutor and department leaders will talk to her again. If she doesn't cooperate, we'll have to ask her parents to come to the school." Asking Huang Yuan's parents to come. Teacher Lu really thought that even if her parents came, it wouldn't have any effect. She would still think that Huang Yuan was innocent. Today, she heard about Huang Yuan's parents' magnificent feat. She was afraid that they wouldn't come to cooperate with the school, but to support their daughter. Given Huang Yuan's misdeeds on the second day of registration, the school wouldn't arrange for the instructor to live with her. They quickly arranged for a separate dorm to prevent her from doing something shocking and infuriating in front of the instructor. Thus, Yi Qian didn't have to worry about facing the girls after the training. Without saying anything more to Yi Qian, Teacher Lu brought Yi Qian back to girls' dorm 405 to take the backpack. The lights in the dorm turned on, and so did the bathroom beside it. Yi Qian, who came in, glanced at the bathroom where the sound of breathing could be heard. At this time, there shouldn't be anyone in the dorm. All the freshmen were sitting in the classroom. The tutor first announced the rules that the students had to follow for tomorrow's military training and told them in advance that they had to obey the instructor's orders. There were girls in dorm 405 who didn't go to the classroom. Yi Jian retracted her gaze and walked into the dormitory. She saw the backpack on the bed and her pretty brows furrowed tightly. Teacher Lu smiled and said, "Fortunately, you only took out the blanket. Instructor Yi, did you take out anything else? Don't leave anything behind." "Teacher Lu, I didn't take out my personal belongings. My backpack has been touched." Yi Qian pursed his lips and his eyes were cold. "Teacher Lu, can you help me ask the students who didn't go to the classroom if they saw anyone touch my backpack?" "What?" Teacher Lu was shocked. Someone actually dared to go through the instructor's luggage. Her expression changed and she immediately said, "Instructor Yi, quickly check if there's anything missing." Before he could say the word thing, he was interrupted by the sound of flushing water and a cheerful humming from the bathroom. Then, the closed bathroom door opened, and a tall and strong girl who was at least 1.7 meters tall walked out. When Teacher Lu saw who it was, his expression darkened. "Huang Yuan, why aren't you in the classroom?" So she was Huang Yuan. She wasn't afraid of attacking a girl at all. With her physique, she definitely had the advantage. Looking at her arms, they were very firm. It seemed like she had learned something before. When Huang Yuan heard this, she pursed her lips and said disapprovingly, "I had diarrhea and asked for leave to come back." She glanced at Yi Qian and said, "You're the instructor? So skinny? You look like a bamboo pole. You look very weak." His impolite gaze was already sizing up Yi Qian from head to toe. After that, he questioned, "How can someone like you get into the military academy?" "I'm so powerful, but I didn't pass the interview." "Hey, did you give me a gift? Otherwise, how can I let you live?" "Who did you ask to send the gift? Can you introduce me? I'll double the amount you've given me. Can you get me into your military academy as well?" With a cold gaze, Yi Qian looked at this arrogant girl who disliked him at first sight. He pointed at his backpack and asked calmly, "Student, do you know who touched my backpack?" "That can't be. You can get into the military academy with that kind of IQ? Do you still need to ask? Look at who else is in the dorm. Then who touched it? Why is there nothing inside? I thought there was a gun or something. I heard they even know how to shoot target. Will there be any problems if a bullet hits a person? Have you tried it before?" Chapter 4592. Huang Yuan's attitude made Mr. Lu tremble with anger. Even his fingers were shaking. She. How is she like a student? She's clearly a female tyrant. Huang Yuan. Shut the hell up. Shut up. Mr. Lu was so angry that his face was distorted. He pointed at the camouflage backpack that was rummaged through and shouted, You rummaged through it, didn't you? Tell me, didn't you? How can there be such a student? How can there be such a student in Xiang University? Huang Yan glanced at Mr. Lu and curled her lips. What's so strange about rummaging through it? I didn't throw it out. Don't make a fuss. She didn't care about Mr. Lu's anger and asked Yi Qian, Hey, I asked you a question. Why aren't you answering? Huang Yan. Get out. Get out. The furious Mr. Lu rushed over. He wanted to chase out this person who didn't even have the most basic moral principles. Yi Qian raised his hand and stopped Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, I'll talk to her first. There's nothing to talk about. Her attitude is too bad. I've never seen such a girl before. This won't do. I have to call her tutor over. Mr. Lu was so angry that he couldn't control his burning anger. How can this kind of student go to school? Taking out his phone, Mr. Lu called the tutor. Mr. Liao, come to room 405 quickly. That Huang Yan from your class even dared to rummage through the tutor's luggage in the classroom. She even spoke nonsense in front of the tutor. Come over quickly. Tonight was the first time the new students met. They took turns to introduce themselves and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. The smiling tutor received Mr. Lu's call and his smile instantly froze. He said to the new students, I have to leave. Students, please continue. He quickly left the classroom. There was a certain distance between the school building and the female dorm. The tutor immediately ran after leaving the dorm, daring to rummage through the instructor's luggage. This kind of student can't be considered a small problem. She has a bad character. Huang Yan's face was also very ugly. Are you kidding me? She didn't even say anything when you called the tutor over a trivial matter. You're just a logistics teacher. Why do you care so much? Meddling in other people's business. Huang Yan, look at yourself. You don't look like a student at all. Do you still have teachers and instructors in your eyes? Do you know how to respect your teacher? Being reprimanded by a student for being a busybody, Teacher Lu's blood pressure rises. This is the first time she has seen a student who doesn't care about teachers at all. From elementary school to high school. How did she survive? Had her teachers ever looked her in the eye? I wasn't talking to you just now. You were the one talking to me. Huang Yan glanced at Teacher Lu, who had been angered by her, and smiled disdainfully. If you think I don't respect you, why don't you just leave? I didn't beg you to stay. You, Teacher Lu, I'll talk to her. Seeing that Mr. Lu was about to faint from anger, Yi Qian stepped forward and pulled Mr. Lu away. She touched my backpack. I'll talk to her. Instructor Yi, this kind of student can't be taught. Let's wait for the instructor to come and see how to deal with this. I'm sorry for making you suffer. Teacher Lu exhaled heavily. As a teacher, she didn't want to talk to this arrogant, unrepentant, and problematic student who had a big problem with his family upbringing. That's right, that's right. Why don't you just talk to me? Wait a moment, I'll get my phone. Huang Yan, who didn't take Teacher Lu seriously, was quite happy. She ran to the bed that she had forcibly occupied to get her phone. Yi Qian's eyes were cold. He raised his hand and blocked her way. Chapter 45-93. Yi Qian's voice was as cold as metal when faced with a girl who didn't even have basic morals. You don't have to take my phone. You were the one who touched my backpack, right? Yeah, didn't I just say so? I was just casually looking through it. Okay, don't be so petty. I didn't do anything. Hurry up and tell me. Did you spend money to get in? Introduce me. As long as I can get in, I'm willing to spend a few times more money than you did. I really don't like this school. A bunch of noisy girls. They don't know how to cooperate with me at all. I just changed my bed, and the cupboard is messing with me. They all need to be cleaned up. Give me the phone number of the person who got you in. I have to remember it in my phone. Instructor, I didn't expect you to be so tactful. That's right. Isn't this good? Everyone doesn't have to worry. Yi Qian smiled faintly. There was a trace of blood in his eyes. Now you owe me an apology. You owe Teacher Lu an apology. Also, you touched my backpack without my permission. Do you want me to call the police? Apologize? Instructor, are you kidding me? I didn't do anything wrong. Call the police. Are you trying to scare me? Will the police handle such a small matter? Don't scare me. I've seen a lot. I'm not afraid. Don't dawdle. Give me your phone number. As she spoke, she waved her hand at Yi Qian's arm. Teacher Lu was so frightened that her pupils contracted. She screamed, Huang Yan, are you trying to hit the instructor? Huang Yan, get out of here. Get out. Yi Qian narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't let Huang Yan hit him. He took a step back and continued to block her. He said calmly, first warning. Apologize. Huang Yan was very arrogant. Even if she called the police for touching someone else's belongings, the police wouldn't deal with it. At most, they would mediate. She knew very well, so she wasn't afraid of calling the police. However, Teacher Lu was no longer shouting. She stood up and grabbed Huang Yan's raised arm. She dragged her out of the dorm. Get out. Get out. How could the tall and strong Huang Yan be dragged by Teacher Lu? She swung her arm and easily shook off Teacher Lu's hand. What teacher? Do you still want to hit your students? Huang Yan, who easily shrugged him off, rubbed her wrist and glared at Teacher Lu, who was yelling at her and hitting her again. I'm only going easy on you because you're a teacher. Why don't you try attacking me again? Don't think that I won't dare to fight back. Me? Get lost? This is my dormitory? Who's going to get lost? What's wrong with moving your luggage? Did I steal from you? Did I break your stuff? A bunch of broken toys that no one would want even if they were thrown into the trash can. Apologize? In your dreams. After that, she glared at Yi Qian. Can't you just give me your cell phone number? Take your luggage and leave. Can you stop wasting time? Teacher Lu was so angry that she was clutching her chest. Even her face was a little pale, but she didn't forget to say to Yi Qian, Instructor Yi, ignore her. Wait for the instructor to come and handle this. Just ignore her. She really knows how to hit people. As long as you don't beat him to death, what's the big deal? Instructor, don't think that you're so great. I, Huang Yan, have never failed to get what I want. Give me your cell phone number and you can leave. Otherwise, Yi Qian smiled. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. Otherwise, what will you do? Hit me? It was clearly a faint smile, but it was no longer as harmless as it was when facing students. She had carried out numerous missions, big and small. As her voice became colder and more ruthless, her entire temperament changed drastically. Chapter 45-94. As the hostility in her eyes grew stronger, Huang Yan, who had always been fearless and arrogant, suddenly felt her heart tighten. Fear appeared on her face. You, what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to scare? Huang Yan, who was fearful for no reason, glared at Yi Qian. She felt that she was too weak and didn't suppress the other party. She swallowed her saliva, furrowed her brows and said fiercely, Don't think that I don't dare to beat you up. Even if I beat you up, I'm still a student. Yes, even if she beat up Yi Qian, she was still a student. She couldn't teach Huang Yan a lesson. Even if Huang Yan attacked first, she could only defend herself. The military training hadn't started yet. She didn't want to have a conflict with any student, including Huang Yan, who didn't have any basic moral principles and did whatever she wanted. She didn't want to have a conflict with her. There were strict rules. Instructors were forbidden from having any conflict with students. Violators would be given a demerit. In other words, as an instructor, as a soldier, she didn't care if the students were right or wrong. It wasn't a reason for her to have a conflict with the students. The students didn't understand, but she did. However, it was obvious that the arrogant and self-centered Huang Yuan understood it very well. Huang Yuan, who could say, "I'm also a student," wasn't stupid. She knew her advantages. When facing teachers, she could use gangster logic to ask teachers to be tolerant of her. She could also use gangster logic to ask students to cooperate with her. It wasn't that she didn't understand or had a low IQ, but that she knew how to use her advantages too well. She knew the principle of the crying child gets the milk. She was already used to the benefits that gangster logic brought her. She felt a sense of accomplishment from suppressing others and making her feel satisfied. She didn't care about Teacher Lu because he was just a logistics teacher. He couldn't control her. She didn't care about the instructor because she knew that the instructor wouldn't hit a student. As a student, as long as she didn't injure or cripple the instructor, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage. The one who would be at a disadvantage was the instructor. Huang Yuan, who had her own set of rules for survival, glared at Yi Qian even more fiercely. There were a few times when she had just gathered her courage, but in the blink of an eye, she felt a burst of fear in her heart. Yi Qian, who had killed countless enemies with both hands and was stained with blood, glared at the overly impudent girl with a murderous look in her eyes. With an oppressive aura, she approached Huang Yuan, who was 3 to 4 centimeters taller than her and was at least 34 kilograms heavier than her. Huang Yuan, who had always been domineering, wanted to stick out her chest and use her physique to intimidate Yi Qian. Unexpectedly, Yi Qian's aura changed. A terrifying aura rushed towards her, causing Huang Yuan to retreat a few steps in fright. You. What are you trying to do? Do you still want to hit me? No matter how powerful Huang Yuan was, she had never been on the battlefield and had never killed an enemy before. All of her arrogance was like a bubble hitting a towering mountain when faced with a real warrior whose hands were stained with blood. Her arrogance disappeared in an instant before it could do anything. Yi Qian was already so close that the arrogant girl was forced to retreat a few steps. He forced Huang Yuan into the corner of the last bed. At this moment, Huang Yuan's height and weight were of no use. Her knees had already begun to tremble under Yi Qian's bloodthirsty gaze. Second warning. Apologize. His voice was like a sharp dagger that pierced Huang Yuan's heart. It pierced so deeply that the girl's shoulders began to tremble. Sorry. Where did you go wrong? Yi Qian asked calmly. Chapter 4595. Huang Yuan, who was trapped in the corner of the bed, was so scared that her whole body was trembling. She was scared. She was really scared. The instructor in front of her was staring at her and occasionally glancing at her neck, as if he was considering what he should use to slit her throat, as if to speed up her death. This feeling was too terrifying, too frightening. Huang Yuan gave up resisting out of instinct. She cried, Wrong. I shouldn't have searched your backpack. Huang Yuan felt as if there was a knife on her neck. Even her voice was trembling as she apologized. She was scared. She was really scared now. Yi Qian laughed softly and coldly. Very well, I'll accept your apology for now. Who else do you need to apologize to next? He took a step back and retracted his terrifying murderous aura. Even the air in that area was instantly filled with oxygen. It gave Huang Yuan the illusion that she had survived a great disaster and come back to life. Apologize to the logistics teacher. She gasped for air, her voice still trembling. Yi Qian turned sideways and made way for Huang Yuan to walk over to apologize to Teacher Lu. Huang Yuan, whose whole body had shrunk, tried a few times before she could stand steadily and walk out. When she walked past Yi Qian, even her steps were much bigger. Teacher, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Ever since Yi Qian forced Huang Yuan into the corner of the bed and made her unable to move, Teacher Lu was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and was completely stunned. Even when Huang Yuan walked over to apologize, Teacher Lu still couldn't believe it. No wonder military training was required. If it had this kind of effect, military training would save the teachers a lot of trouble. In the face of the apology, Teacher Lu, whose anger hadn't completely disappeared, first looked at Yi Qian. She received a smile from the military instructor and turned to look at Huang Yuan. Her voice was cold as she said, "It's good that you know you were wrong. You even dared to search the instructor's backpack. What else do you dare to do? This is the school, not your home. You can't do whatever you want. You should follow the rules. Huang Yuan, I'll forgive you this time. There won't be a next time. Do you hear me?" Mr. Lu's criticism didn't bother Huang Yuan at all. Huang Yuan hummed softly in response, which made Yi Qian speak again. "Huang Yuan, did you hear that?" As she spoke, Yi Qian walked over and stood beside her. His gaze swept past her neck again, making Huang Yuan's body tense up. Her masseter muscles trembled as she replied, "I heard you, teacher. I definitely won't do it again. There's no next time." It was much more honest than the perfunctory Only then did Teacher Lu's ashen face slightly improve. The sound of the tutor running could be heard from the corridor. After receiving Mr. Lu's call, the tutor ran all the way to the 4th floor. He ran until his lungs were about to explode. Panting heavily, she ran into room 405, only to find that Huang Yuan had already apologized to Instructor Yi and Teacher Lu. Instructor Yi was packing up the luggage that Huang Yuan had found and was preparing to leave the dormitory. The counselor couldn't believe that Huang Yuan would apologize. Yesterday and today, Huang Yuan refused to admit her mistakes and insisted that she was in the right. If there was a mistake, it was all other people's fault. Now, Teacher Lu actually said that she apologized and admitted her mistakes? Admitted her mistakes? Really admitted it? Teacher Lu, did you hear her admit her mistakes? The panting counselor asked repeatedly to express her disbelief. Chapter 4596. Mr. Lu smiled and nodded. "She really did apologize, I'm not lying to you. Instructor Yi really has a way. You didn't criticize her, you just stared at her until she hid in the corner of the bed. Then she apologized to Instructor Yi, and then she apologized to me under Instructor Ye's instructions. Mr. Liao, you should really thank Instructor Yi. For the next 10 days of military training, you must ask Instructor Yi to fix the problems the students brought from home." Mr. Lu, who was in charge of logistics, was deeply moved. The instructor, who had always been troubled by Huang Yuan, could no longer remain calm. Seeing Instructor Yi, who was in charge of their class military training, easily deal with her most troublesome student, the instructor felt as if she had seen her savior. She immediately apologized to Yi Qian, and then said somewhat embarrassedly, "Instructor Yi, can I have a word with you?" The result of this conversation was that Yi Qian did not change rooms and continued to stay in room 405. When Huang Yuan heard that the instructor she was afraid of was actually sleeping in room 405, Huang Yuan, who had changed beds and cabinets, even walked back to the classroom weekly. She was very afraid of this beautiful instructor who looked like she could beat her with a single punch. Her eyes were too terrifying. Even her own Sonda coach did not have the kind of eyes that could make her feel fear in her bones. When the pale-faced Huang Yuan walked out of the dorm, she realized that her back was drenched in cold sweat. She knew that her days from now on would definitely not be as good as before, and she would not be able to do whatever she wanted, make everyone afraid of her, and have no choice but to listen to her. The instructor was still thanking Yi Qian profusely in the dorm. She really did not know what method Instructor Yi, who was about the same age as a third-year student, had used to make the lawless Huang Yuan obediently change back the cabinets and beds that she had rudely snatched away yesterday. She also made the beds of the 2 girls who had cried because of her and tidied up the cabinets one by one. Yi Qian, who had stayed behind, smiled and said, "It's not a big deal. I can't guarantee that Huang Yuan can change some of her bad habits. I just did my best to make her understand that she has to bear the consequences of her mistakes. Then it's done, it's done. Thank you, Instructor Yi, for your hard work in the next 10 days. Thank you very much. The instructor thanked him again and again, then left the dormitory and rushed to the classroom. Yi Qian, who had chosen the outermost bed, smiled as she sent the tutor off. Then, she began to make the bed. Actually, it was not entirely because of the tutor's request that she stay behind, but because she felt that it was a challenge to train students like Huang Yuan to obey the rules. She wanted to give it a try and see if she could complete the challenge. As for what method she would use, she had seen too many examples of troublesome recruits being disciplined and turned into obedient people when she was training in the army deep in the mountains of Fujian town. This was her first training. She couldn't just treat it as an ordinary military training. Instead, she treated it as an experience before entering the army. When dealing with students like Huang Yuan, using Teacher Lu and the tutor's gentle methods to educate them was undoubtedly like punching a rock. The rock didn't hurt them, but they hurt themselves. Some students needed to use softness to overcome hardness, such as those with a hard mouth but a soft heart. Some students needed to be unyielding. For example, they were eager to be strong, unwilling to submit to anyone, and only thought that they were the best. But some students, like Huang Yuan, who was in front of her, who was high and mighty, but had a lot of scheming. When she made a mistake and bullied someone, not only would she turn the tables, but she would also complain first. People who were well-versed in this way would not be able to use softness or hardness. It was better to use a different method. Chapter 45-97. She thought you were easy to bully. She used her identity as a student and refused to admit her mistake. She fought with the teacher to the end. What about the teacher? Was he going to waste more time because of this student? Basically, the teacher used the method of scolding first, then preaching, then appeased the student who was at a disadvantage. Then, the matter would be settled peacefully. After all, the teacher couldn't do much. Usually, families that could raise such a child were influenced by their parents. Huang Yuan came from a small city. Her family was a bit rich. Her parents spoiled her, and her elders spoiled her. She was raised to be so arrogant that even a 3-year-old child had to give in to her. However, her parents still spoiled her. They thought that as long as their daughter didn't suffer, it was fine. Huang Yuan, who had learned Sanda for a few years, hired a tutor to tutor her since middle school. She was so domineering that she could make her relatives' 3-year-old children apologize. She never thought that she would kick an iron plate today. Around 9:10 p.m., the other 3 girls from dorm 405 came back together. When they opened the door and saw Yi Qian, the 2 girls immediately became tense and didn't dare to move freely. "Hello, instructor." "Hello, instructor." "Sorry to disturb you, instructor. Did we disturb your rest?" Yi Qian, who had washed up in advance, smiled and said, "No, I should be the one disturbing you. My surname is Yi. You can call me Instructor Yi. I'll be staying with you for the next 10 days. Welcome, welcome. The other students are envious that you're staying with us. Instructor, you go ahead. The 3 of us will tidy up first." Yi Qian saw that they were very tense, so he didn't say much. Soon, one of the girls said in surprise, your bed, look. It's changed back." "Ah, it's true. Quick, see if you've changed back to your cabinet?" Yes. Let me see. Ah, it's changed back, it's changed back." The 2 girls who had changed back to their beds and cabinets were jumping with joy. The other girl quickly pulled them back and whispered, "The instructor is here, the instructor is here. Lower your voice, lower your voice." The 2 girls who were overjoyed stuck out their tongues and quickly apologized to Yi Qian. Seeing how happy they were, Yi Qian was also affected. There was a deep smile in his eyes. Huang Yuan realized her mistake and changed the beds and cabinet. If you have any difficulties in the next 10 days, you can tell me and I will think of a way to help you. He couldn't directly call out Huang Yuan either. He still had to treat everyone equally. However, she believed that the smart freshman should know what she said. The three girls were extremely happy. Even Huang Yuan had a smile on her face when she came in. However, what happened next shocked them so much that their jaws almost fell to the ground. Huang Yuan, who dared to hit them today, actually apologized to them. He even said something like, "I won't do this again in the future." Yi Qian nodded in satisfaction. She never thought that one day she would be like Captain Xia, stunning people with her gaze. At 8:30 a.m. the next day, the standard opening music for military training rang out. More than 1,300 freshmen lined up on the field. On the stage, the school leaders, the instructors of the various departments, and the military academy leaders all sat down. The host introduced the leaders and guests, representing the official start of the opening ceremony. The participating instructor representative, Yi Qian, and the student representative, Luan Qi, each gave a speech. Then, it was the military academy leaders' turn to give a speech. At 10 a.m. sharp, the opening ceremony ended. The 36 classes finally welcomed their military training instructors. The training zones for each class had already been planned. Following the instructors, each class entered their respective zones and began their first day of military training. In Yi Qian's class, the boys in charge of military training walked and chatted. Chapter 45-98. Who would have thought that the female instructor, who was rumored to be beautiful yesterday, was really beautiful? She was even assigned to their class for military training. What a treat, what a treat! D*MN, she's really beautiful. I always thought that it was fake news. Seeing is believing. But I have to see it to know if it's real or fake. Her facial features are exquisite, her face is small, and her skin is quite fair. She's not a military school student. She's more like a celebrity. The boys in our class are going to be envied by the boys in the other classes. Hee, did you see that? The boys in the next class have looked at our class so many times. Of course they're envious. The only female instructor assigned to our class, and she's so beautiful. TSK. We're lucky. Yi Qian smiled. Lucky? She hoped that they wouldn't say that they were lucky in the future. She hoped that she could maintain her smile and mood until the military training ended. Tao Yi, as the runner-up in Taekwondo, you shouldn't spar with the female instructor. I feel that the female instructor isn't very capable. Just give us some military training as a token of appreciation. We will also cooperate. Don't expect to experience military life as you said before. It's okay. We can find the male instructor from the next class to spar. We'll be merciful to the female instructor. Yi Qian continued to smile as she observed the freshman. Not bad, there was still a runner-up in Taekwondo. She could spar with him later. She hadn't interacted with the runner-up in Taekwondo yet. The smiling Yi Qian made a mental note of the boy named Tao Yi. The sun began to burn after 9 in the morning. It was almost 10 in the morning, and the sun's intensity had increased by several levels. Perhaps it was because the freshmen were very enthusiastic about the military training, or because the school had arranged for them to train on the driveway with camphor trees on both sides, but their enthusiasm didn't diminish at all. Yi Qian didn't care. She just stood in front, silently noting down the time, faces, and the performance of all the students during the training. There were 43 students in the class, and they were divided into 4 classes. Each class needed a class monitor, and she had to choose the class monitor through observation. Her smiling observation made the freshmen in the class increasingly think that the female instructor leading them was not strict, so they started to make more and more small movements. Suddenly, they heard the shout of the male instructor from the class next door. The majestic and loud voice instantly frightened them, causing their hearts to tremble violently. Immediately, many of the freshmen were glad that the female instructor in their class was very easygoing and very lenient towards them. Fortunately, they were female military instructors, and not male instructors during the military training. The male instructor was still much stricter. She could tell from last night. Yesterday, the male instructors had quietly entered the school by bus. The group of male instructors heading to the dormitory was quite majestic. They were dressed in olive green and carried a large backpack. Their steps were neat and orderly, and they could maintain a straight line even when they turned a corner. It was as if they had a hidden ruler, and wherever they went, they were in a straight line. It was said that other than bringing their own pails and washbasins, they even brought their own bed covers. Oh, and the boys who lived on the same floor as the instructors were lucky enough to witness a scene that they had only seen on TV before. All the blankets were folded into blocks of tofu. They were square, flat, and had sharp edges. It was as if they were pressed out of a machine. It was amazing. Towels, cups, shoes, they were all lined up in a straight line. A few boys with OCD felt satisfied for a long time. It was too neat. It was so neat that the boys who were observing were cautious, and in the end, they were in awe. When they returned to the dormitory, they said with a face full of fear, "It's too strict. I'm afraid our military training won't be easy." Chapter 45-99. All kinds of things about the male instructors had already been heard from the mouths of the male instructors. Only the female instructors were quite mysterious. Knowing that the female instructor was as beautiful as a celebrity, the restless male students wanted to have a chance encounter after dinner, but they didn't know which path the female instructor took to escape. In the end, they didn't run into her, continuing to maintain a sense of mystery until the opening ceremony began. Seeing the 36 instructors standing in front of all the new students, looking at them horizontally, and looking at them sideways, it simply made the new students' line of sight glance at the instructors for a few seconds. Of course, the one who glanced at the most was still the female instructor. She stood with her hands behind her back. Her straight legs, hidden in the camouflage uniform, were as wide as her shoulders. Her waist was tight with a belt, and her waist was so slim that it couldn't be held with one hand, making the science and engineering male students couldn't help but wonder how big her waist was. Her back was also perfectly straight, like a pine tree that grew in the sun. Wind and rain couldn't be broken, proud and unyielding. Her temperament was so good that it made people look at her again and again. After looking for a long time, they could see that the female instructor's aura was stronger than the 35 male instructors. There was also an inexplicable fear of looking directly at the back of her head. It seemed that if they stared for a second longer, she would immediately turn her head and accurately catch who was looking at her. Looking at Yi Qian's back, the male students who were very close to her had an inexplicable fear. The male students who were further away only felt that the female instructor's back was very slender. As for the rest, they didn't feel anything at all. Just watching and listening like this, until the opening ceremony ended 1.5 hours later, until the instructors of each class led their teams and left. Now hearing the shouts of the male instructors, the new students who were scared by the male instructors looked again at the class led by the only female instructor who hadn't moved yet. The envy in their hearts increased by a lot. Why aren't we female instructors? Why are we male instructors? The male instructors are too scary. I want to go over. Their class hasn't moved yet. The female instructor has a good temper at first glance. I also want to go over. Don't talk about it. Our freshmen at the headquarters are still considered lucky. All of them are military school students who are training us. The branch is much more miserable. This year, Xiang University had a total of more than 3,000 freshmen. The headquarter had more than 1,300 and the branch had more than 2,000. The headquarters freshmen were trained by the National Science University's 36 military school students. The branch's more than 2,000 freshmen were trained by Xiang City's armed forces. The two departments' military training was carried out simultaneously. The male students who were flustered by the male instructor's cold voice thought of the new students in the branch and felt much better. In any case, their instructors were all military school students and university students. The envied freshmen of the surveying and mapping project were in a good mood. As they spoke, they gradually lost their basic formation. Yi Qian, who was standing in front, had already finished observing. At the same time, the slight smile on his face slowly faded away. Under the brim of his military camouflage cap, a cold glint appeared in his dark eyes. Huang Yuan, who was standing in the last row of girls, accidentally made eye contact with Yi Qian. At that moment, Huang Yuan, who always acted like a queen and liked to play petty tricks, shuddered violently under the hot sun. "Don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me. I didn't say anything, I didn't say anything. It's them who are talking. Don't look at me, don't look at me," she silently muttered and lowered her eyes. If her mother saw this, she would certainly be taken aback. She couldn't believe that her precious daughter, who even her relatives' 3-year-old children had to yield to, was actually as honest as a little white rabbit. She didn't have her usual arrogant, offensive power. Chapter 4600. Huang Yuan mumbled to herself. She thought that Yi Qian couldn't hear what she was saying, but in fact, there was no way Yi Qian wouldn't be able to hear what she was saying from the way her lips moved. Since last night, the female tyrant had been very well behaved. Not bad, intimidation had a certain effect. Yi Qian didn't know that when her eyes turned cold, the murderous aura hidden deep in her dark pupils swept over, and there was even a trace of ruthlessness in it. Huang Yuan, who learned Sanda, was no stranger to this kind of murderous aura. Therefore, Huang Yuan, who had always been the female tyrant from elementary school to high school, became the first freshman in class who was most afraid of Yi Qian. Tao Yi, who hadn't spoken a single word to Yi Qian, didn't feel anything for the time being, but soon, he also felt that something was wrong. The female instructor standing in front of them had a slight smile on her face just now, but now that smile was gone, her expression was as cold as the snow in winter. Although it was beautiful, it was so cold that it made people feel cold in their bones on such a hot day. "Stop talking, hurry up and stand properly," Tao Yi reminded them in a low voice. "The instructor seems to be a little angry, hurry up and stand properly." The first row that didn't move was the first row. They were the closest to Yi Qian, so they could clearly see the changes in Yi Qian's expression. The beautiful instructor, who wasn't smiling, used her aura to make them gradually stop moving and talking. The first row didn't make a sound, and the second row also didn't make a sound. Gradually, a tense atmosphere that came out of nowhere enveloped the entire class, like a transparent net that tightly trapped everyone, making them gradually more and more afraid to move and talk. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The soles of their shoes rubbed against the cement-paved road. The originally crooked team gradually straightened and straightened up. Gradually, they unconsciously straightened their backs and shut their mouths. Looking at the female instructor who was still silent in front of them, they began to feel a little flustered. The female instructor in charge of the military training felt that something was not quite right. She was a completely different person when she was smiling and when she was not smiling. The former made them feel no pressure at all, but the latter, why did they feel so nervous? After silently counting down to 10 minutes, Yi Qian finally moved. She took a few steps closer to the class and stood less than a meter away from the front row. Slowly, slowly, her gaze swept across everyone's faces like a sword's glint. Just like that, a chilling aura entered the hearts of the freshmen, causing the 43 freshmen to panic and start to feel afraid. Changed, their female instructor had changed. He had completely changed into another person, a person who made them feel extremely uneasy. My surname is Yi and my first name is Jian. You can call me Instructor Yi. I will be in charge of your military training for the next 10 days. A clear voice pierced through the air. At the same time that the freshmen remembered Yi Qian's name, they also remembered her voice, which was so cold that it made one's heart turn cold. It's here, it's here. The bad premonition is here, and it's about to come true. My requirements are not high. First, you must obey orders. Do not disobey orders. Second, you must obey orders. Do not disobey orders. Third, you must abide by the rules. Do not disobey orders. Fourth, if you have any objections, please refer to the first, second, and third rules. Her clear voice rang out word by word. There was no room for discussion. She carried out the 2 requirements of obeying orders and obeying orders to the end. Now I will take roll call. Whoever I call, just shout here. There is no need to walk out. Just stand there and answer. From the pocket of her camouflage uniform, Yi Qian took out a list of names that had been folded into a square. The names of the 43 students were all on this list. She had to combine the names together. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.